Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is King and today's video will be a book review, a reading book, as you can see on my board. Usually whenever I try to do book reviews, I get very overwhelmed and confused because when I write it's like so much to write, and then when I want to just like talk about it I get lost and I go on tangent. So I decided that for this book review I wanted to sort of more outline the things I wanted to achieve with this video. That was easy to streamline and make into point, which I wrote in my journal here. So the first thing I want to achieve in this video, in this review, is to express my disappointment about the book's story in general. The author is called Elizabeth Noble, and this is her first story, her first writing. When I bought the book and I looked at the cover, it was a very pretty book, and I was judging it from the cover because it was giving very quirky, kind of girlhood or womanhood aesthetic, you know, the reading group, and I had great expectations. I don't know, for some reason, after reading the first page, I was like, yes, I'm eager to see what this book has for me. And if you watch my haul video, which is the last video I made, and check it out, please. I was so happy to get into the book. Then I had some hesitation because it was like our first book. I was like, okay, so this book is going to have some flaws. I thought it was be flawed writing or a flawed premise or something. Something that I would aim to chalk up to beginners, whatever. But like, I went online to check the book's review, and amazingly, this book shot up to number one on a bestsellers list, because this book is by somebody from the UK. The book is set in London or like the UK. So their own list or something shows like number one, and it did so well. There's so many reviews. On Goodreads, it has a 3.5 rating on Goodreads, which is above average in my opinion. Yeah. So like, and that's after I read it, I found out about it. So like, ah, how, you know? The book was published in 2003, so early 2000s, and on the page of the book, because I this is a second-hand book, I saw this stamp Eden Girls Secondary School. So probably this book was a reading, like a textbook for a certain school at a certain time, which is amazing to me. And it was a reading for only girls school, which is just, but like I was saying, if I go on a tangent, I was very, very disappointed. Before I got midway to the book, I was just feeling so much disappointment about the story. And the second thing, the things that exacerbated my disappointment or that brought it on, was her failure to expound on the interesting character. There was one character that pulled me in, and that was the character that I met on the first page that made me feel like I'll have a wonderful time reading. And this character is named Claire. I'm getting to Claire, but Claire was such an interesting potential of a character, yeah. But Claire ended up being like stowed away, like thrown off to the side. She ended up becoming like just a shadow, on the whole story. You get, and it was just like, why? If you're not going to do anything to her with her, like, why did you create her? Why did you put her here? you know. Then the people that now got the shine of the book, I'm still talking about the disappointment, use for disappointment in this book. The people that now got the shine of her focus and her effort and her writing and all of that, they were so extremely dull. Like the actual reading group is so freaking dull. It's dull in a way that when somebody tries so hard to do something, and because of that trying hard, it colors and completely diminishes the actual thing they were going for. It didn't seem like they were letting the writing didn't seem like it wanted these people to be real people, or not just real people, but they were trying so hard to make something that was not there. Like, just let them be what they are, in character. I don't know if you get this, but they ended up just being um too too empty. Like, you want to make a character very intense and three-dimensional, and it just comes up as if you're parodying a three-dimensional person. So like a three-dimensional entity quality, and it's just like these are parodies, these are not. This is just annoyingly like also very annoying. Then the third one, the main reading group. No, this reading group now. The premise of the story, the premise of the book is that it's a reading group. Formed by five women, I think, and these five women come together to read books every for an entire year. You get, and the books at first, the books that was the pick of the month. Each woman, like, it's rotated around them. Like every woman would select her book of the month, and everybody will read it. And they'll talk about it at the end of the month or whatever time they met, like in the month. So it was crazy because I was expecting to be impacted by their discussions, but the discussions fell flat. The books were just like, and then the books that they were reading, the reading group became like a prop. It wasn't real. It wasn't a meeting of people, to interact deeply like the way it was suggested. Now, the opening of the book starts with a quote by Margaret Atwood, that she says, this Margaret Atwood quote is the first quote. I don't know if you can see it on the book. The real hidden subject of a book group discussion is the book group members themselves. Both the book group and the book group members fell flat. Like there was nothing for me to connect with. I could not connect with the reading group as a whole or by itself or the books that they were discussing. Although I haven't read any of the books that they talked about. So I wasn't expecting them to like break down the book for me to understand personally. I just felt like there would be some things that would tie up, in their discussions about the book that would make it seem like, okay, I get where they're coming from, I get what they're getting from the book. But at the end of the day, it just felt like the writer was trying to draw parallels of what was going on in the book to what was happening in the life. But these books are too intense. These books are picks of the books for the reading group were too intense to um make sense of. Like it was just compared to their lives. Yeah, their lives were too shallow for them to connect with the book. And because I haven't read any of the books in the list, I cannot really say. So they're trying to just the writer was trying to make this parallel that this book that the reading group is reading relates to this person in the group. There's a member of the group, Susan, the one that formed the group. Susan created this reading club. And Susan, at the onset of the story, Susan discovers that her mom is suffering from a disease that is rapidly eating away at the hippocampus of her brain. So it basically means the mother is losing, all of her memories, and she's lost. Like she doesn't know where she is anymore. Some days she's with her husband, and her husband died a lot of years ago. And then some days she's just newly married, and she thinks her son-in-law is her husband. That kind of experience, but it's not hitting. Do you get? So many times when Susan tries to bring up this whole torture, about feeling tortured about, not because she has to take care of her mom, but because she has to give up her mom to professionals to take care of in a nursing home. Like the guilt she feels for doing that at all, it's just written, it's just spelled out. It's not, I'm not seeing it. You get, I was not feeling it because coincidentally Susan has the best marriage in the group. So it's just like, and her husband was being all supportive. Her husband is a doctor and all of that, so like he's there for her. He understands her. She has a shitty relationship with her sister. So like it's just the author was trying to make her this kind of complex, this situation, and then relating it to the story. But I don't know, it doesn't hit. It just like Susan is telling us that she feels bad, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she feels bad, but I'm not feeling bad for her. And I think that is because the main angle of the book, it overshadows everything. The author was so um obsessed with bringing to life this agenda, this her great agenda for writing this book, that it just overshadowed everything for me. I could not enjoy the book. I could not even enjoy the characters and the way they developed, because every word that these women were saying was pointing to this agenda. And I'll bring up the agenda, which is what I want to achieve with this video. The second thing I wish to achieve in this review is um I want to bring to light the infantilization of almost all the male characters in the book. They were either childlike or too one-dimensional for their female counterparts. Even the male kids were not spared from being squeezed into stereotypes or stereotypical boxes. Is I don't know, like this story is obviously centered around women and the lives that they live, the life they live as mothers, the life they live as wives, and the lives that they live as persons. That is the main crux of that's the skeleton of this book. Like that is what I feel she was trying to show us, the reader. You know, and she wanted to make it interesting. Yeah? So that's the novel. Like interacting with this aspect of these women in the reading group would, you know, create a story basically. But in her bid to achieve this, to make women the base and the everything and the foundation and the meat of the story, the weight of the story, she completely abandoned the men in the story. And I'm not saying this as in to say, oh, like here's an author that does not focus on men. It's important, like the failure of making these men be something to the failure of making these men to be nothing more than one-dimensional flat characters, flat beings in this story. It shows up when she's trying to use the depth and the complexities and the 3D nature of the women to upstage these men. And it's like, fine, I support when women do things like that. Yes, of course, like men are not important. Women should be the center of their spirit and the center of the universe. But she's using the men, you understand, to show this. And it's like, if you're going to use the men to show this, they can't be 1D characters, they can't be flat, they can't be cartoonishly evil or cartoonishly saint. Like, there has to be something, something that interacts with this woman, that brings it to life, that shows you. But it's just like pitting this is a superhero against like just a goon, like where Batman used to beat up goons in Batman series. I don't know if you people watch Batman, but it's like a running gag now that Batman will not kill the main villain, but those goons that are protecting the main villain, that are on his that are obstructions to him reaching the main villain, he takes his time to actually crush them to pieces. Like there's no fucking way they are recovering from his style of torturing and beating them up. You get, and it's like, but those are not your enemies. Then you now see the main enemy and you tell them that I don't kill people. And it's like, I'm not against your ethics of not killing people, but those goons that you beat up before you got there, let's not call them goons, but those henchmen that you beat up to pieces before you got to this guy, what are you going to do about, what do you say about that level of hurt and pain and whatever that it causes? You get, so it's like the writer is trying to set up that, oh, the men are not important, but her main enemy, which is the patriarchal system that these women live in, which is the system um of the UK that women live and exist in, which is the real enemy. You get, the whole society in this world is like we live in a patriarchal society, yeah. And the main enemy is the system, the patriarchal system we operate under. And yes, men play into the patriarchy to get benefits above women, okay? And women are put to be lesser than men in the patriarchy, yes, and they gain from it. But if you want to make a deeper impact, I think it would be more of focusing on destroying the system. Like if you want to fight it, destroy the system. These men are not, yes, they are part of the problem and they are making the problem bigger, yeah, but and they are playing into the system, but they are not the real um they are not you don't stop at the men, yeah. You don't stop at the men. She makes them to be this 1D flat characters, as if when I make them want the flat character, you realize how very irrelevant and very annoying, or how, yeah, how irrelevant they are to the vast richness and complexities of being a woman. Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to do that, you get, it's just going to make them, it's now be as if the women are existing in a sort, I don't know how to explain it without telling you the story, but basically the men are too flat, too one dimensional, to reflect this thing she's trying to show with the women. You understand? The men are too flat, too one dimensional, and so you just end up with these, as if somebody's just showing you something instead of, like, as somebody just telling you something instead of showing it to you. Like, oh, I have this thing, I am this thing, I am this thing. Like, okay, I'm not seeing it reflect in your values. You get, and you say women are front and center. Like, oh, how do I make an example of it now? Like, there's a situation, there's a character here named Cressida, and Cressida is 19 years old when she meets Elliot. Elliot is a 30 something plus man, and they meet in the college she's going to, you know, and they start up an affair, and Elliot is married and all of that. And eventually Cressida finds out, like, Elliot tells her that he's married, you know, that's after they started a relationship and they are taking it to the next level of like having sex and all of that. And Cressida is like, let's, she's enraged and she walks away, and she's like, she's not going to do it again. But the way they come back together, Cressida decides, okay, like, Elliot explains to her that him and his wife, they're having issues, you know, they have serious issues, blah blah blah. And the wife is part of the reading group. Cressida's mom is also part of the reading group, you know, but they don't know this yet. Nobody knows. It's only Cressida and Elliot know each other for now. And they don't know how their lives are intertwined, yeah, or how their relationships are intertwined. But anyways, Cressida, the way what happens is Cressida decides, she so-called decides, after hearing out Elliot's story of his depression on hand, how decided to leave his wife and all of that, she decides to continue her relationship with him. And there's a kind of way, the author now writes that Cressida looks at him and he's like, it's infantilizing. She sees Elliot as this child, you know, this childlike thing, to this childlike person, to, you know, like, oh, he can't help himself, you know, maybe, you know, he's going through a lot and I'm here to protect him. And it's so infantilizing. You get, and it's like, when you infantilize the man, so the woman, it is on the girl, 19-year-old girl, to carry this load on her head, to carry the load of sleeping with a married man. You get, and the guilt that comes with all of it. She doesn't even expound on the guilt, she just wraps it up as Cressida holds him, and that is the end of it. Like, they just continue their relationship, you know. And it's like, what are you trying to say here? You get, even when everybody finds out, the mother of Cressida finds out, and she's angry at Elliot, but then her anger recedes because she looks at Elliot and is like a child. Like, it's so stupid. And I'm going to bring it up, but it's so stupid. Like, I just have to say these are the things I want to touch on this story, and it's like so very annoying. But that's just an example. How are you going to make Cressida and her mom be these champions of, you know, complex lives that, you know, are worth much more attention, when the people that they're up against, the representative of the systems that oppress them, is this flat one-dimensional character? So, like, it's just like, what's the point? Like, what am I here to see? Like, of course Cressida is cool, of course her mom, blah blah, like, you know, senseless. But the third thing I want to really express, which is like the main reason I'm making this video, is how there's an agenda. Like I said, there's an agenda this book exists for. There's a reason this book exists, you know. This is not some writing to be an artist or whatever. This is a writing to push a pro-life agenda. This is a writing that is anti-abortion, anti-choice. Yo, like, this woman literally equates a grown adult woman that has already had 3 children with in a marriage to a man that is a serial cheat. This woman gets pregnant for this same man in an effort to save their marriage, and she decides that, like, after conceiving and finding out she's pregnant, yeah, she now catches this husband literally having sex with the family they went on vacation with, the man's wife, like on their bed in their hotel, while the children are downstairs swimming, and she was watching after them, pregnant as she was. She didn't tell him that she was pregnant. She didn't tell him. She wanted to make it a surprise because she felt their relationship was on the mend. And so this woman decides that this baby that she had is not going to fix anything, and she decides to abort this baby. This woman already has three children. The second child, the second one, she had twins the first time. The second one came through cesarean section. And she decides, no, she's not going to suffer through another pregnancy by herself with a cheating husband. And she decides that this is the end of her and her husband. So she decides to get rid of the baby. And she tells her friend all of this, like from the start of the plan of conception. Her friend, like, I don't like this idea. It's not, a baby not going to solve things. But her friend knows that she has a baby. Only her friend knows. And both of them are in the reading group. This woman that is pregnant tells her friend she has decided to abort this baby. And her friend that the author has written as this free, carefree, very jazz. You know, in every group in every female group usually there's always this one very extra loud character, and that is this friend. Her name is Harriet. The woman that also has that wants to have the abortion, her name is Nicole. So Nicole and Harriet are close, and they come to join the reading group as a pair. You know, they're already friends. You get, and they join the reading group. So like, back to what I'm getting to. Nicole and Harriet. So Nicole decides that she's going to have an abortion. She's steady, she has made a decision, and she goes to the clinic. But in the UK, before you have abortion, you have to get clearance from your general practitioner, your the person that you see, that is your doctor, you know, and all of that. And she, before she goes to see the doctor, okay, she goes to see the okay, before she goes to see the doctor, she talks to her friend Harriet. And Harriet says she doesn't want to judge her in her mind. And Harriet has expressed beliefs that she's against the Pope and his edicts. That what does the Pope know about regular people for him to be telling people how to live their lives? But she has an objection to the abortion that her friend wants to do. Her friend, I've already listed the background of this friend though. She too, she hates this husband. You hear it? Harriet hates Nicole's husband because she found out barely on their first meeting, like she found out that Gavin cheats. That's the name of Nicole's husband. So she hates Gavin, she knows the situation, and she's still saying that she thinks it's a wrong decision, but she wouldn't tell Nicole that. In her mind, the thing that really made me so fucking pissed, I wanted to throw this book in the dustbin and burn it and just like make a whole ceremony of burning the book and everything, was because this Harriet goes to say that abortion is on the same level as the death penalty. Like, she was equating an abortion to the death penalty. Now, do you know what the death penalty is? The death penalty is when the justice system comes together and decides that this person that committed this crime is not worthy to live among regular people, regular human society. This person deserves to be eradicated from society. And this person has done things that are absolutely beyond the pale of ethics and morals. You get, this person has crossed the line of evil beyond, and this person deserves to be eradicated from society. You are comparing that to a fetus that like, it's not even a fetus yet. It was not even, I don't even know the stage it was, but it wasn't a fetus yet. But anyways, they're comparing that decision, that killing, to just removing something that is essentially a parasite until the day you put it to bed. It's essentially a harm, a load to your body as a human being, even after birth. Like, you're comparing getting rid of a parasite in your body to the death penalty. Like, and I was like, you know what? Out of spite, I'm actually going to make this fucking video. Like, this book deserves to be critiqued from here to Kilimanjaro. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, and look at the background of Nicole. So that's the main thing I want to rest on in this video. That's the main thing I want to really expatiate on in this video, in this review of this book. And how the horrors of saying you are giving this book to a girls' school. So Nicole does that, decides to abort. Meanwhile, you have Cressida, a 19-year-old, having an affair with a married man that is 20 years older than her by more than 20 years or something. I don't fucking care. Was older than her than that, like that. And instead of you bringing to life the gravitas of this man doing this to a young girl that just starting her life, you now deflect from the man and put it on the woman, on the girl, the 19-year-old, to be the person of, to be the voice of reason in between the two of them, for her to, just because she's the one that eventually, like, she has to bear the, she has to be the one to judge um the gravitas of the relationship between these two people. No reflection on Elliot's end, no real consequences to Elliot's decisions to have an affair. Well, and the situation of Elliot is so unique. But before that, I'm just saying, like, I bring up Cressida because eventually Cressida is pregnant. Cressida gets pregnant, and against her mother's wishes, she decides to keep the baby. And I'm bringing up, she decides to keep it. Like, so you can see these two people here. Nicole's situation comes up much later in the book. Cressida is like at the literal start of the book that, oh, she finds out she's pregnant. Yeah. So like I'm like excited that, oh, teenage pregnancy, blah 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 blah. And it's like at some point both of them now come close to each other. Like Cressida eventually had the baby, and Nicole went through with the abortion. And both of them now come to this point where she literally makes a parallel on how Cressida's baby is such a blessing to have, while Nicole now has to carry the guilt because this woman punishes Nicole so bad. The author punishes Nicole, punishes her, and punishes Harriet for supporting her friend in this abortion, because Harriet decides to be emotional support for her friend the day she decides to have the procedure, the D&C. And the D&C happens successfully, and Harriet comes into the room after it's done, and holds her friend as her friend cries and all of that and all that. And she decides to punish Harriet by making Harriet's child jump from the roof of their garage down and end up in a coma. So the child does not die, but the the story when the boy comes out of the coma, like when he wakes up from the coma, is that, wow, how wonderful life is, how the life of a child is, how Cressida's baby is a blessing, because eventually the reading group rotates at their homes as well. So the reading group is now held in Cressida's home, Cressida's mom's house, because Cressida still lives with her mom, obviously. And they meet the baby, and it's like the baby is there and being a bundle of joy, while Nicole is there grieving, still grieving the baby that never was. Or it's not even the baby that never, like, let's just say the baby that never, because that's how she wants us to see it. The baby that never was. And Harriet is is in the middle trying to like prevent, like Harriet is just there. You get, nobody knows about Nicole's procedure. Only Harriet and Nicole is privy to what Nicole went through. And it's just so selfish, so mean, so agenda based, like a literal propaganda material. It's actually disturbing to think of. Like when I was much much younger, when I see, if I'd read books like this, I wouldn't have felt this intense anger and disgust, because I wouldn't have recognized that I was being fed propaganda. I would have just felt like, of course, then I grew up in a religious home too, so That wasn't even a question. But like I wouldn't have felt this propaganda. Like I wouldn't have seen it for what it was. Pro-life propaganda. I wouldn't have seen it as what it for what it was. And I was like, okay, in what situation do you want Harriet to be okay with AD and C? Harriet says that she wants she's all for women to have their choice and their body and blah blah blah. But I'm like, okay, so you want women to have choice of their body and all that, but like, in what other situation do you think a woman can fully express that her body is truly her own if it's not in a situation of this level, conception, having a baby, and all of that? And I was like, how bad? I started to think, like, before I made this, I went to research. I was like, how bad was it in the 2000s for teen pregnancy, the rate of teen pregnancy in the UK, that this woman felt the need to bring up the fact that teenagers should definitely have their babies, even if it is an unexpected, unwanted pregnancy from a very unfortunate situation. It's not that, if you look at Cressida's situation, it's not that unfortunate actually, because Cressida is from a middle class family. She has the support of her mom. Like her mom literally spoils her, but that's another thing we get into. So like basically all of that I want to express it before we go too far into the storytelling. I want to express it fully. You understand in this review. Then the next thing that is not so big like the pro-life propaganda is the my gripes read intense hatred for the character she seemed to favor in this book. There is no one regular main character, but there is a group, and the group is the focus of the story. But she still picked favorite among these women, and it's so annoying. She picked favorite among the groups, and those favorites were based on the ones that aligned to her pro-life agenda and the having babies agenda. Like this woman wants women to just have babies, like she just wants women to have babies, and she's not saying it as in a matter of something cute. It's like this, as if this is a mandate to you as a woman to have a baby. You must have a baby, because and all of the women in this book have some interaction with babies in that sense. And I'm not saying interacting with a baby, I mean interacting with the choice to have and not to have a baby. The ones that were her favorite in this group amongst these characters were the ones that actually heavily liked the idea of having a baby. Harriet was her number one favorite character in this book. She can't tell me nothing. Harriet was her favorite, and coincidentally, Harriet was the one I hated the most. Like, go figure. Of course, I hated Harriet. I hated her so much. Even before she got to the line about the death penalty thing, I hated her so much. She was getting on my last freaking nerves. And the character I feel she hated was the one I loved. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Like, the first page of the character I introduced in the first page, Claire. That Claire, she's the reason why I look forward to this book. I love Claire. Do you know what she did to Claire eventually? She punished Claire and she threw her away. Stowed her away to the nothing, to the void. Like, Claire ended up leaving the group and going to Romania to help kids that were suffering from the war at the time, and that looks like such a noble goal and everything. But you have to know Claire's background, which is what I loved much about Claire, is that Claire's background is that Claire, for the past 5 years, has been trying to have a baby to no avail. All of the babies, conception happens, but like in a few weeks it washes off, it goes out of her body. Sometimes it gets to a month or even later, but it all of it has ended in miscarriages, and there's just so many anniversaries of the deaths, the miscarriages that she's had. you know 5 years she has been trying with her husband. And who is her husband? Elliot. She and Elliot has been trying for a baby. So there's at this point in time, the story starting, she hates her husband and her husband also hates her. Yeah, they can't stand each other anymore. So they rotate their shifts to when each other will not be in the house. They will not have to see or interact. And they do their best to exchange less than a word with each other, less than a few words with each other. So it's like And it's not they're even past the point of arguments. You argue with someone that you care about, they don't even argue. They just have this silent seething disgust, especially Claire. And I was like thinking, why I love Claire is that seemed like a very wonderful thing to explore grief, loss, and the kind of one that is inexplicable. You can't blame anybody for this, but she blames Elliot. Of course, she blames Elliot, and Elliot knows she blames him, but he has no way to reach her. Okay, they have gone past the point of funny that Elliot and herself started a relationship in secondary school, to this point where they are grown adults, yeah, and it seemed like they were each other's world. You understand? So like I was so eager to see how she would explore is a butterfly outside my window. Oh, to see how she would bring to life coping with grief as a woman in a world where you have been socialized to believe that your entire purpose for being here is to have a child first and foremost, then be a mother, be a wife, have a child, be a mother, then be a wife. Because being a wife is not as important as having a child from the things I've begun to notice in society. So for her to fail at this job, because it's not that his sperm was not motile enough, you get, because he's the one that pregnated Cressida. So for her to fail in this aspect, and Elliot expresses it so, she herself expresses it so, but not with so much words, but Elliot in his thoughts expresses it as such. For her to fail at this, the author feels like that is the biggest crime to human nature. Okay, so she punishes her with a husband that sleeps with a teenager, and not just sleeping with the teenager takes in and has a baby successfully in the hospital where she works at. Oh, did I mention that Claire is a midwife? So Claire, there was even an attempt by Harriet to connect with Claire, but it does not happen because the next week they meet up. Her mother announces that Claire has gone off for midwifing duties in Romania. You understand? And I'm like, okay, okay, I see what you did there, Mrs. Elizabeth Noble. I see what you fucking did. So like, I'm not saying Mrs. Let's just call her Elizabeth, Miss Elizabeth. I see what you did there. I see what you fucking did. Punishing her, like as if she's not sad enough or grieved by her so-called failure, a type of failure that you cannot even begin to fight against. Failure of her, but something that her body cannot do. Her body is not built to keep babies, but she keeps trying anyway and suffering and everything, but it's not enough to understand that is and help her process the grief. No, you have to ship her off to, and after the news comes that Claire has gone to Romania, everybody just like, wow, that is such a noble cause. Wow, that is so, to transform your grief into something that helps humanity. Wow. Well, that is not helping. I feel like that is a self-imposed exile that Claire has decided to punish herself with for failing. It has to be a failure. It just has to be, because that is what the author intends. Like every woman that cannot give birth here is a failure. You understand? So that is it. The favoritism focused on characters that are pro-life, and then the ones that she hates are the ones that cannot 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 have children, and the ones that decide not to have a child. But this is about women, and like I even checked up like her other books here, and all of them are mother daughter focused. All of them are mother daughter focused. Like she has this thing about mothers and daughters connecting on a very primal level, like level of womanhood, femininity, motherhood, and all of it. And it's like, what sort of connection is that when it is colored by tenets of the patriarchy? It is literally founded motherhood, wifehood, womanhood, femininity, all of it are determined, have been judged and put for us by the patriarchy. The patriarchy is what defines all of those concepts for us. So even if you take it for yourself and say, oh, I want to be a woman, I want to be a mother, like I want to be this type of deep complex, have this deep complex relationship with my daughter, or this deep complex relationship with my mother, it's like If both of them are operating on these tenets of the patriarchy, you people are doing nothing but evangelizing to yourself to continue to uphold the system that oppresses both of you. So I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. I really don't know what to I don't like I don't know what to tell you about your noble goal. So that's the last thing I'm going to talk about, the mother-daughter bond myth. Like, these women have male children, boys, but all of them are not real. I think there's one other woman, Cressida's mom, Polly. She has a son, Danny. I did not even see Danny did not say one, like, I think Danny only said one line in the story, and it was when he found out his sister was pregnant, and was like something like just greeted her, something like stay okay, something like kind of like a joke that he said. That was it. Danny never interacted with anything. Danny was not involved in her. So after I've outlined all of this, let's begin the story. So this is part two of the reading, or let's just say of the review. So, like, or should I say this is a different section of the review? And in this section, I want to go into plot-based details of the characters. But I'll first start it with I'll lead into the story with the women, that are the focus, as in the women that make up this reading group. And I'll start with my favorite character, the one that actually opens the book, and that is Claire. I don't even know that they have a son name actually. It's just Claire and Elliot. Claire is a midwife, that's her job, and her husband is Elliot, and he works at a college for now, but like we don't know it yet. At the start, just to give you a kind of picture into the lives that the both of them live as a couple, and to also give you an opening into the crux of their strained relationship here. Start from this page. Maybe I should close this window. So I'm just going to read, the exposition that Elliot thinks to himself, because on this day, Elliot comes back from work and he calls out to her in the house. Already you can feel that the silence is stifling. So he calls out to her in the house and she doesn't answer, and he has learned to predict her mood by that thing. If she answers, maybe it was a a fair day, but today he says no answer. So clearly today had been a bad day. Sad friendliness was a good day, indifference marked an average one, but when she ignored him, then became hostile, she had had a bad one. We have a glimpse of their origin, how they got together. Of course, she had been shy when they were first together, but they had been only 14, and even had there been the opportunity to see each other naked, which they certainly hadn't, it had all been so new, so timid. He always thought they had been deadlocky together since the fourth year, all through O levels, A levels, her nursing degree, his teacher training. Like, that's insane. How can you be together for all your life? 14 years is like literally the beginning of your teenage years, and you guys were dating to 30 something plus, and because of a baby issues, you guys literally are frayed at the pieces, frayed at the edges, and your relationship has come to nothing. Goes to show you that when people preach about good relationship, not like a gotcha, but like most of the time, people use the length of the time that they had been together in the real world. I mean, they say, oh, we've been married for donkey years, 20 years, 50 years, and all of that. And everybody on the outside is like, wow, you guys made it. Like there's some sort of lottery to marriage in general. There's an end to it, like it's an exam, and you pass by staying together the longest. Meanwhile, it's a relationship with two different people, and from 14 to 30 years of age, there has to be a change. You get, but the way both of them are so gutted by this event of not being able to carry a child, the way both of them are literally, their relationship has been ruined to nothing. You get, it just shows that I don't think they really knew themselves as well as they thought they did, and it just shows that either one person changed and left the other behind, or the both of them changed and now they are no longer the same people that got together in the beginning, but they're like staying on because they want to be, because of the length of time they've been together. But not to get carried away, let's just continue. So Ella goes on to explain to us, and it's not like a dumping, it kind of feels normal because Claire is not speaking with him, so he's just reflecting on their relationship. He says it wasn't supposed to have turned into this a sterile, empty, childless marriage. And it's like, so how is the fact that a relationship that was formed from before you people even had your prefrontal cortex um strengthened, like solidified, that's what I mean. How is it that not having a child turns all of that, leads all of that to waste? I think this, well, it happens in real life, but like it's something that we have to talk about. Yeah, like why does it happen that way? Having a child is not, well, let's just keep on going. For 5 years, they had been trying. It had been fun to start it, extra sexy to be making love with a baby in mind. He had felt fantastic lying there afterwards with his hand across Claire's belly, wondering if they had started something, someone. No, that's not that's not, you don't have a baby until that baby comes out of the birth canal. That is not a person. That's not a human being. That is just the idea of a thing. Okay, he had had her all to himself for years, and he was ready to share her. They were both excited. It hadn't taken long for her to fall pregnant the first time, and then a few weeks further along, there had been a messy, miserable miscarriage. But that was okay, everyone said. Of course, you're sad, but it happens to so many people. Really, you'll be fine next time. And that is the problem. That is not how grief works. I don't think they allow themselves to process the horror of a miscarriage together normally, before trying again. You get that whole misconception. And again, people commenting on your grief does not mean that you should go along with what they say. Okay, grief is very personal and is very private and should be dealt with, or should be coped with based on how you want it to be, not what people tell you should feel like. Okay, so what if a child has come the second time they tried and they had given birth to the child? Do you think the sorrow of the first one would not still persist, linger, like distort itself and express itself somehow, somewhere further along the length of their relationship? Something to consider. They were young, they cried together for the baby that would have been born in time for Christmas, and they moved on. Miles and miles on until the couple they had been then was unrecognizable to both of them. 60 months, 5 miscarriages, maybe more. What the hell? Dozens of tests, a seemingly endless procession of doctors, obstetricians, and specialists, a calendar full of dates that celebrated nothing except what neither of them could forget. Sometimes Elliot thought that Claire hated him nearly as much as she hated herself. How do you know she hates herself? How do you know? Did she tell you she hates herself? And why is your conclusion, like, why are you the focus of this her self-hatred? Why do you think, like, why are you placing yourself there in the face of her self-hatred? You understand? Like, it kind of read to me as if he was hoping her love for him would help her overcome her hatred of herself, and that is not how it works. I know that from experience. And maybe more than she had ever loved him. Okay, so now here's the thing that I didn't even notice in the first place that really pissed me off about Elliot in general, Elliot's character. At first, I was like, this guy is just a dunce, like, he's just a daughter big, like, he's just a figurehead, but this part just made me realize, like, I get why she feels very stressed about these miscarriages and failure to have a child. He goes on to say they hadn't kissed before Christmas, not a proper kiss. Christmas was always the worst time. The on birthday of the first on baby. Shut up your mouth, man. It was a time for family. Another myth. Christmas is just a, yes, Christmas is wonderful. I will not say I don't enjoy the feeling that holiday brings, the nostalgia and all of it, but Sometimes you just have to get over this nonsense nostalgia marketing that, oh, Christmas is for family. What about, and even the concept of family? What about people? We are in a world that have like has like over, like we are up to 8 billion people now, yeah, in on this freaking rock. Do you think every one of us that occupy this rock have families? And the people that even have families, do you know that some people have left their original family and moved on to create their own idea of a family? You get, so like feeling horrible that your family is not this picture perfect falsehood that they preached to you as a child. Like, grow up. I won't blame him. They got together at, I won't blame, not that I won't blame him, but I won't blame his ideology. They got together as kids. I don't think either of them actually allowed themselves to mature and experience life as separate, fully formed human beings to reflect on their personhood before, they were shagging up and being husband and wife. This year, Claire hadn't even, we'll get out. He starts to talk about the whole gifting ceremony that he gave her a gift, but she did not give him gifts. Even if he knows the gift is always impersonal since the first day or whatever. He tries to talk to her, she does not answer. She instead starts telling him, because she's a midwife, which is horrifyingly ironic. She's a midwife, and almost every day she has patient has have successful births, or even if it's not successful, there's just the process of giving birth, yeah, or whatever. Like, just children are being born, left, right, and center in her at her workplace, and it's her job to sometimes birth those children. So whatever, I don't know. So he complains. He doesn't complain to her, but in his head, it's like all noticing the lack of emotion in her voice, in her interaction with him, and he tries to make it up. You know, he tries a last ditch effort to make her feel better, and then he says, oh, he's thinking that they can go for a holiday at a ski resort, but like she just sees red. She just sees red. She's like, oh, that's right, we can't have a baby, so let's hit the slopes instead. Let next birthday really a great holiday. Then she's talking about how she put on her knickers with her back to him, with her dressing gown on, so he couldn't see her, and he names it punishment. This man is actually very self-absorbed. I understand, like, this whole feeling of when somebody that you love deeply is hot and they're angry and you can't reach them. So like, you don't know that there's an option for you to just back the fuck off, yeah, and just let them be in their own pain. While you focus on your own pain, sometimes you now, because you cannot help them out of their pain, you begin to feel as if they are hurting you. You begin to take front and center of their pain. You get, and he's pretending like she's the only one hurting. Guy, you're also hurting. You're also the one losing and disappointing too. You get, of course, her own hurt is a great deal larger because she's the one carrying the hurt, going through the whole process of conception and carrying and then miscarriage and all of that. Yeah, but like, he's also suffering some level of pain and hurt. But instead of him to focus on his pain and like try to process what it means in his body, he's focusing on her like he's going to save her, like he even has the ability to save her, and she's just rejecting his effort. Like, oh, I want us to go for a holiday, and she's like, yeah, sure, of course. Like, she's sarcastic and she's mean about it in his eyes. Like, of course she's going to seem like that, bro. She's not okay. But him, like, what he has learned to do is to pretend as if she's not directing any sarcasm or meanness towards him, and he just continues talking as if there's nothing there. And in his head, he says, Elliot and Claire, not brown from afternoons under the sun, tired from making love all morning, always in the morning, when the brightness made the intimacy all the greater, when sex was open-eyed as they gauged each other's responses and desire. Claire and Elliot giggling from remembrances of tipsy evenings in the town, watching people not too lucky, not too in love, not too happy as they were. They never would begin. That's what he said. So it's just random, and then she informs him that she's going out. She's going to the reading group. This is the first meeting of the reading group. And he's like, sure, okay. That would be good at whatever. Like, but she's like, well, I didn't even go to university. So, like, being a midwife here, I think is a training course you do. It's not something that you go to school or their own type of university for. I'm not sure, but she says everybody in the group probably went to university, and she bet she feels stupid and she won't go again. And it's like, you're not stupid, Claire. You'll be fine. Who else will be there? So they talk about it a bit, and then we come to know that it had been Claire's mom, Mary, who had asked Susan to include Claire. She thought it might help as much as a plaster would heal a gaping wound. Elliot thought, but he had given up offering opinions. Elliot pulled himself off the bed. Wherever Claire was going, the relief of her absence would hit when the door closed behind her. Now, when I was reading this book at first, I didn't notice it. Not when you're reading something so fast, like you're excited and all of that. I didn't notice it. But now that I'm reviewing it, I see this line where he goes, he'll put on the stereo, something loud and mindless, pour a big drink, and phone someone who made him feel good about himself. So like I thought it was just I didn't actually I don't remember reading this. But like that's the one that's of a review, yeah. So like yeah, at this point, the pain he was feeling, he was probably coping with it by having an affair. And since Claire is not even of the presence of mind to be in her own body, talk less of having an affair. You get I can see why he's so eager to like squash her pain. You know, whenever maybe he gets high off of the attention of his lover, off of the validation and the comfort of his lover's attention, yet unlike his wife's cold indifference, he carries it over to his home and he tries to like spread it to her. That's why he still has the mental fortitude to pretend like her irony does not get to him. But the thing is that the more you keep on taking Panadol for something that you should go to the hospital and take injections for or be admitted for, the more the problem inside of you exacerbates. Like he's getting a short-term relief from his affair, and he's coming saying, oh, let me pour into my wife's emptiness, my wife's grief, so that she will feel better. And it's like, it's not enough. You can never even begin to fill up your wife's grief. Your wife is the one fucking going through all of this horror. It's just not possible. So anyways, that is Elliot and Claire's introduction, and that is the dynamic that they exist in, that Claire is coming off of when she joins the reading group. On to the next character. Okay, so the next character is Harriet. Harriet is a stay-at-home mom. She's a mother to two children with her husband. Her children are Josh and Chloe. Josh is older than Chloe, so. And her husband is Tim. He's a financial analyst. And in this this introductory scene, we see where she has handled all of the kids, their whole activities, the end of the day, the end of the night. And while husband gets home, returns home from work, and he's all buoyant and enthusiastic and is eager to read them bedtime stories, and more than two bedtime stories. While as she reads them, the shortest one possible so that they can doze off to sleep. And then she thinks to herself that is it not easy for him when he's all he has to do is just come in at the end of the day when they've bathed and they smell clean and they've gotten all the whole mess up of their bodies. Like she has done all the work to make them clean and presentable. Then he just comes in and swoops in and is a perfect dad. Like he's also bloody perfect. You get, and she feels guilt for the fact that she can't read her children longer bedtime stories. She feels angry and irrationally jealous at her husband that he gets to easily do all those little fun things with their children. And I think it's very valid, yeah. It's very, very valid, because if you take care of children for like more than 20 hours of the day and somebody just comes in and does like bare 30 minutes of work, because no matter how many times you read the storybook for them, like they are likely going to be out by the end of 30 minutes or 10 minutes at most and all of that. So like, and she doesn't have a job, she's a stay-at-home mom, like I said. So she looks at him, when he can't see her, and she looks at him and she feels this irrational anger, this jealousy, and then But this night is different. She's going out to join her group. She's going out. It's just so, like, I liked Harriet at the start because she seemed so awfully blunt about her feelings, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I was like, yes, of course, these are human feelings. This is a very human feeling to feel, as somebody that is in this position in the world, a mother and a wife. You get so it goes. Harriet's tread on the stairs was heavy. It's also bloody perfect, she thought. Except that I really don't think I love him anymore, if I ever did. So that is Harriet's opening scene. So the third character is Nicole, and Nicole is married to Gavin. They both have three children. The first was a set of twins, boys, Will and George, and the second was Martha. She had her through CS. And so when I'm making my note, I say, what is Nicole's deal? What is her deal? Well, Nicole's deal is her husband Gavin. Gavin is a serial cheat, and unfortunately, Nicole is the type of person, like, just think Brie Van de Camp from Desperate Housewives. And if you don't know Brie, go and watch Desperate Housewives. I'm so serious right now. Just go and watch it, please. It's always, the epitome, the picture of control and efficiency and perfection in looks in her home. You never meet her home messy. You never catch her sleeping on it. You never catch her sleeping in her looks, in her hair, in her makeup, in her figure. Like, her body is trim. She goes to the gym. Her hair is always on fleek. Who says that anymore? Nobody. But, like, that's the only word that's coming to mind now. So, and she even says it here that other women tear their hair out in crisis. Nicole blow dries us into perfect waves in the moment of crisis. So on this particular night when she's going to meet for her first meeting with the reading group, yeah, Gavin comes home as she's on her way out, and she looks at him and she thinks, oh, he's so beautiful, all of that. Also, Nicole has an au pair named Cecile, and Cecile is absolutely impervious to Gavin's charm. So she loves Cecile and she feels safe with Cecile. So just noting that there. So Gavin comes home and she's on her way out. Now this day was one of those days that she was aware that he was having an affair. But the thing about Nicole knowing of her husband's affair and cheating is that she has never caught him, but she just knows, the way he treats the leggy blondes, that his co-workers, the interns, that wants to get ahead, the way they stick to him for a while and then he goes to the next. Like, it's just obvious, when a man is being dirty and sleazy with other women, he has a wife at home, this idiot. So anyway, he comes home and all through the day she has held on to her sanity by cleaning and maintaining the house and putting everything in order and efficiency and control and all of that. So this last moment where she's making her escape, he comes home and he's looking at her like, oh my darling, you look back, and she's just like in her mind like, he was so beautiful, his enormous eyes, like, like this type of woman that married a very sexy, very, I know that I'm sexy, charming man, that, kind of like a George Clooney, I feel. Not as I know George Clooney personality, but like the way George Clooney used to be. Not the George Clooney now that dyed his hair like a uncle, like your uncle from one village. No, no, no. The George Clooney of 2000s, yeah, that is sexy with his graying hair and all of that. Like, I don't know the description, but the way she talks about her husband, she talks about her husband like a fawning fan, like a fawning admirer. You get? So, like, she still feels that way about him, knowing that he still cheats, you get, but like, she's gutted by it. Anyway, this scene ends with her just being sarcastic and him trying to kiss her, and she's like, I'm out, and she leaves the door and she slams it just to prove her point or something, like her anger. She hasn't up to this point confronted him once about his cheating or about anything. They just do this kind of nonsense flirting with the devil where they pretend as if they don't know, each other's don't know, like, as if they don't know what they are doing here. So he would be extra clingy to a random lady at an outing that both of them are attending, and then he would now send her flowers the next day that, oh, I'm so sorry, I was late to our event last night and I didn't pay so much attention to you. And it's like, no, fucker, know what you're sorry for, But like that's just the introduction to. We'll get to that later. This is just an introduction to Nicole's own character. And what's the name of that? Julie Andrews' character, Mary Poppins, yeah. But she doesn't have the magical power or the snack of Mary Poppins. Okay, Martha Stewart is more. I don't know what these American references, but I think Martha Stewart is more aligned to the character of Susan's in the sense like she's a homemaker, but she also works. She works in creating curtains and furnishings, like soft furnishings for any home. She also works with the real estate office, I guess, maybe like to connect. I think okay, like interior designers, like I think she works in an interior decorating firm. So and she handles curtains and soft furnishings. And her co-worker is Mary, that is Claire's mom. Now Susan, the way she's described here is the end of a holiday night. I think Christmas has ended by now, the New Year has ended. And she's talking now, she's literally taking us through how she cleans the house, how she prepares supper for her husband, her sons. Oh, she has two sons, Alex and Ed. Her sons and her mother Alice that lives with them. Her mother is in her 70s now, and her mother is displaying signs of aging here. She seemed a bit off this holiday. She didn't really eat much as usual, but she was very, very happy as always. Her pleasure was undiminished, in the midst of her grandchildren. Oh, her sons came with their girlfriends, and their girlfriends were sleeping next door to them. So their house is big, and it seems like they're influential, they are wealthy because Roger is a surgeon. A big deal. It's a big deal. He's a surgeon, and I think he's on the level of a consultant. So yeah, they are making big. Like her husband is rich. You understand? But I don't understand why. Like the way she runs about, like the way she goes about, like cleaning the house, and all of them are sleeping. Like literally, all of them are sleeping because that what happens on holidays. You eating, you're overstuffed, so everybody goes to sleep early. Like then you wake up in the middle of the night, and then everybody wakes up and it's noisy and everybody's eating again. Like that's how holidays at times not real. But I don't like the way she's framed as this busy bee, this home keeper, this home maker kind of energy you get. And despite the heavy duty of maintaining our home and and thinking of everybody and everybody else's needs, yeah, she's the one that also created this reading group because she has been trying different social experiments to try to keep her mind busy. She tried what did she try? She tried exercise, for to keep her body fit, but the thing was not good for her back. She tried French. She went to start studying French at the local college for beginners so that her and her husband go to Paris for their wedding anniversary. But Paris was filled with a lot of snotties, the sales assistants and waiters. So yeah, like nothing has worked so far in her hobby experiment, yeah, and I get that. I really like that, but I just don't like the homemaker thing and how it is framed as something very good natured and wholesome. It's not fun for only one person to be in charge of all of the cleaning and cooking and buying of gifts and organizing and all of that. It's so stupid to me. It's so stupid to me. So I was resentful of Susan in the beginning. I was like, oh, I'm not like Susan, but eventually Susan was just very bland to me, even though she had one of the craziest acts in the book, which I'll get to later. But this is just an introduction to what she is. And then she, after preparing dinner for everybody and covering it with clean film and all of that, she leaves for the reading group. Polly comes as a package, which is kind of like a foreshadowing of her entire life. But first of all, Polly, she's a single mom. She divorced her husband not too long in their marriage. After her first child, actually, she had her first child out of wedlock, in the sense like she conceived before they were married, and she had the second one with the same guy. So that's like two children, Cressida and Daniel. Her husband name is Dan, and she has a current boyfriend, Jack. But on this day, Polly is looking at something, considering something, a ring, a very large ring that Jack had given to her that she was not wearing. She was just simply looking at it and thinking to herself, like, is this my life right now? Not in a wow, my life is beautiful, but in a what the fuck? Like, do I want to get married again? She was very skeptical looking at the ring while also feeling a bit giddy about it, like, oh, this ring is perfect, this ring is exactly what I want. And in this case, Polly is a lawyer, I think, or she a paralegal, she's a lawyer, whatever. Yeah, so she has a job, she's doing well, her kids are Daniel is the younger one, and he's 15 years old, while Cressida is just entering college at 20 and all of that. So, anyways, she removes all thoughts of daydreaming about the ring from her mind and decides to just go for the reading group first. So she's on her way out, and on her way out, she says something that tells you what kind of character, what kind of person Polly is. Yeah, she's like kissing her kids good night, and they're just like, "Oh, don't hear," like, that kind of thing. She now says, um what the hell am I doing playing bright upstairs with these two lumps down here to remind me who I am, where I've been, and what I'm bad at? What to say, what to answer, yes, no, would you settle for a maybe? And it's like, for her to believe that her children are what defines or what answers the question of who she was, where she's been, and what she's bad at, is kind of telling on the way she looks at the world to me. Somebody that has completely wrapped her identity and centered her children as the meaning of her life, as the epitome of her personhood. You get reflection of her person. That she doesn't seem to have an identity outside of those children. And it's just like sad to me because a lot of people still see it as a noble thing, but me, I don't. I see it as torture. I see it as a mess. Like, I don't, it doesn't mean anything. It's trash. I don't like that perspective. But anyways, what she leaves for the reading group here. Then we now see the second package of Polly is what Cressida, her daughter was being surly to her before she left because her daughter had bigger things on her mind, and that was trying to figure out whether she was pregnant. You get, and so she went immediately. Her mom left. She went to the bathroom and took a pregnancy test. And as she waited for the results to show up, you get, she started to think of her life in general, and how she's not a cliche, and how they had been so careful, she and this person, to make sure that this doesn't happen, to prevent AIDS and to prevent this pregnancy. But yeah, and this person was the first person she ever slept with in her life, so like he took her virginity, and it is mentioned here. But it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird because now I think about it, like all this exposition about Cressida here, that how she feels like meeting him was a gift. You get that she had been really glad that she hadn't been so close to anyone before. It had been a gift she had for him. She had been so true. So the whole perpetuation of this lie, this myth that your virginity should be a gift to your partner, to be a gift to your husband, to the first person you get with, that should be a gift to him, and that person has to be important, vetted by God, or some nonsense social expectation as marriage or husband or whatever. Like, she has been so thrilled the first time lying beside him afterwards that it had been him, and nothing could ever change how it was, which wasn't to say it had been perfect, just that she was glad. So I think the exposition into Cressida's person is just to show us that Cressida is not hostile, Cressida is not antagonistic, and Cressida went into this with a man that is nearly twice her age, um, willingly. Like, she consented. Like, of course she consented, yeah, to the sex and all of that, but the whole premise of the relationship and the whole icky complications and all of that, it's not something that I think somebody of our age can fully process. You get, in the terms of consequences and long lasting effects, like long lasting consequences and the repercussions of all of it. Like, I don't think she could process it in that moment. Meanwhile, the man that she was getting with could process it and felt like it was. We'll get into it later, but it's just like we only know we only the author only exposit on Cressida's character so that we will not say we will not make her be this child. You get, we will not see her as this inexperienced, which is what she is, or which is what she was, inexperienced, naive participant in something that was way bigger than her head could carry. Guys, she has not even like fully formed her prefrontal cortex for getting into such a relationship, and then she finds out that the pregnancy shows up as positive. Like, of course it shows up as positive. Like, are you kidding me? Of course. So anyways, yeah, so those are all the characters and how we are introduced to them. So then we're going to go now into the next session of this review. Back to the book review, reading group. Now, in this section, I want to kind of give a little bit of narration of how, going through my notes here, I'm going to read off how the dynamic of the whole book plays out. Yeah, in a very shallow way, in my opinion, they focus on the story and never really let it seep into their private lives. And yes, it is good. And that is a good thing. And the focus of discussion is mostly the book. So it ends up being boring to me because their takes are obvious. It seems like the obvious conclusion to reach to. It gets dull, and I'm just like, oh, whatever, next. Let's get to their real life. Now, Harriet is usually the voice that contends with the general conclusion of the group, but not in an antagonistic way. They feel like she's fun to listen to and they contradict. And also, Harriet studied literature in uni, so she has references to pull on to support her opinions about the book of the month. They enjoy her and sometimes give her opposing takes as well. Like I said, it is good fun, and I feel it is so especially fun for Claire. In the group, she is shy and she feels daunted at first to make a sound or be seen, but the atmosphere is cool and nobody hones in on her for her quietness. They let her be until she gets comfy enough to speak up one time, and in her mind, she says she enjoys Harriet a lot for her liveliness. From that moment on, she speaks up more than before, and they all wait for her patiently each time. All the women have pointed life events taking place in their personal lives. So, starting with Susan, so in Susan's life, what is happening is that she doesn't want to put her in an elderly care living facility. Let's just call it a nursing home. She's riddled with guilt until one night in conversation with Alice, like the week where she decides that okay, she's not going to take her mother anywhere. She's going to actually take care of her mother like at home for the end of her life. So Alice was holding the magazine upside down. So Susan turned it around for her. She says, "Oh, thank you, dear." But now that it was the right way up, she still wasn't reading it, although she had her glasses on. She hadn't turned the page in 10 minutes. And now that Susan looked at her, she could see that she was staring into the middle distance. Not in the mood for reading tonight, Mom. "Oh, yes, dear. Very interesting. You're not reading it, though, Mom." "Oh, I'm not." It was a question. "Are you tired?" "Me, dear. No, no, no. You go off to bed, though, if you like. I'll wait for your dad." Roger, her husband, as Susan's husband, told her that there wasn't any point in arguing or correcting her because Alice's short-term memory made it impossible for her to hold on to whatever you told her. But Susan couldn't do that. It felt like surrendering. "Dad's not coming home, Mom. Roger is coming home." She spoke slowly and she held Alice's hand as though it might help. "Oh, Roger, of course. Silly me. Lovely boy, Roger. A lovely boy." "He is, Mom. Not so much a boy these days, though. Do you remember? We've been married for years. It will be 25 next April." 25 years? A happy marriage is a wondrous thing. She sounded as she was reciting poetry. "We had very happiest, your dad and me. I know you did, Mom. Would you like me to get you the album so you can look at some pictures of Dad?" Now she smiled at Susan, all maternal and warm. "No, dear, there's no need for that. I've got it all locked away up here. You don't need pictures if you have a fine memory." She leaned over and suddenly kissed Susan's cheek. Her cheek was cool and powdery. "You're a good girl, Susan. We were so lucky to get you." Now hold on to that sentence. So lucky. That made it harder. "I wanted to talk to you about something, Mom. I'm going to put you in a home. I can't cope with you, and everybody tells me I mustn't try, so I'm going to get rid of you." as Susan's guilt. Speaking of, lovely darling, let's just have a nice cup of tea, shall we? I'll make it. She decided to get up. No, mom, you sit down, I'll get it. You're an angel. You do that, and then we'll have that chat. When she came back with 2 mugs, Alice had turned television on and was staring straight through a documentary about insects. The volume was at its highest level. Susan took the remote control and turned up the sound. We were going to talk, mom. Can I switch it off? Oh no, darling, your father will love this. He's mad on this sort of thing. He'll be home any minute. She took her tea and patted Susan's hands gently, then dismissively, never taking her eyes off the screen. So like that just shows you where Alice is at and where Susan is at. So she cannot actually hold off anymore. And so to make this decision, she has to call her sister Margaret. Susan and Margaret are on bad terms, have been all their lives. Roger hates Margaret because of how she has always tormented Susan. Margaret lives all the way in Australia with her husband Greg and moved away from London after their engagement 20 years ago. She does not want to, but eventually she agrees to visit London to see her mom and the home. So Susan is wrecked with tension and by guilt and sadness this period. So that is Susan's life event. Polly is best friends with Susan. Their kids are about the same age, but Susan's are older. They met after Polly's divorce when Polly had been overwhelmed by the stress of single motherhood. Susan had sort of taken her in and supported her. Polly's first kid, Cressida, was an unexpected one. Note that, which her mom completely dissuaded her from having at 21 because she was just starting her life according to her mom. Her boyfriend at the time, Daniel, was heavily disapproved of too by her mom. They eventually married because of the pregnancy. They lasted 5 years and got divorced. I might be missing the years, but it's apparently that time frame. She had full custody of the both of them. Danny, her second kid, was born 4 years after their first. I think it was an attempt to save the marriage, but it wasn't working by that time. She had had enough of Dan's uselessness, basically. I think it was just like full on weaponized incompetence, like, and she could not stand it anymore. Dan in present days remarried, while Polly though she took her time. After the harsh disillusionment of marriage and the weight of raising 2 kids all by herself, she's not eager for a stranger to cut into and invade her space and impede her freedom. She started dating Jack though currently, and Jack is also a divorcee who this past Christmas proposed to her with a ring she absolutely loved. Yet she never gave him an answer. He says she can take her time though, but that's what's stressing her a tiny bit right now. She absolutely loves Jack, but dot dot dot. Susan, she confides in about it, and Susan launches into a sermon of how marriage is such a good idea for Polly to say yes to. I also do not like Susan for this because she's obviously coming from privilege, the privilege of the perfect marriage. Polly says as much that Roger is Susan's lucky break. But she's successfully influenced, and later on, after a few days when preparing dinner with Jack, she says yes. So currently, wedding is on her mind. Cressida is Polly's daughter. She's dating this guy Joe. He's been her boyfriend since I don't know before A levels. Her mom knew him. Susan knew him. They passed their GSC exams together and were supposed to go up to university together. They're supposed to also lose their virginity with each other in the perfect moment in the perfect space according to Cressida's requirements. Joe is patient, and that's what he's looking forward to. Patient. But for some reason, Cressida decides not to start with Joe at the university. She sends him off and writes him letters and calls him periodically, and all that. But this holiday, this Christmas, at the beginning of this book, he's home and Cressida has been distant, aloof, very reluctant to connect with him like that. And the night before he leaves for school, they have this conversation that it's kind of like them breaking up without the use of explicit phrases or words. You get Joe knows this in his heart that it's over between them, and Cressida, she doesn't care. She just wants him to go. Also, she found out one day by her mom, who notices Cressida's share of tampons have not decreased since she last shopped. Since she last talked them, they have this quiet confrontation. So, Polly has made the connection here and she has found out. So now she's waiting for Cressida to get home in her. She's sitting in Cressida's room, all the lights are off, and then Cressida comes and calls for her. She's like, I'm in here. Cressida went straight to the lamp and switched it on. What are you doing in the dark? And Polly just says, Cress, don't you think it's about time you told me? The relief in Cressida's shoulders, in the sob that escaped before she buried her face in her hands, covered with stretched jumper, shocked Polly. The distance she had aimed to keep between them for this conversation was suddenly too far, and she was across the room, pulling her daughter's lovely head onto her chest, murmuring as though Crest were a baby. Dear, shh. Long minutes of silence later, Krista asked, how did you guess? Oh, darling, I've known for a few weeks that something was wrong. I've only just today concentrated on working out what it might be. I'm sorry, have I been too far up my own bum since this wedding business? Oh, mom, don't you say sorry. Typical, I'm the one who stuffed up my head, one apologizing. I didn't want you to know. I thought I could sort it out on my own, but it's got away from me. It's all too big, you know. Polly cuddled her a little bit more. They sat up and pushed her hair behind her ears. Let's be very British and have a cup of tea with sugar. So that is the confrontation. And she asks Cressida how far along she is, and Cressida says about 3 months. 3 months. And she was like, we're careful, mom, honest. And then by omission, Cressida lets her mom believe that the pregnancy is Joe's own. Like she and Joe got involved and then she ended up pregnant. She's like, her mom mustn't tell Joe no matter what, that she doesn't want to involve Joe at all. That Joe is having his life in university. So like not right now, not now. Yeah, she'll do it on her own. So Cressida tried to get it aborted, but she said she lost her nerve, and so now it's probably too late to do anything about it. And Polly thought, is that what she wants? Thank God, an abortion had to be the best way. Christ wasn't it the only way. Christina had it all in front of her. She couldn't give it up now. But suddenly, Polly was 21 again, sitting in front of the room, blah blah blah. She recalls how her own case happened and how her mom was screaming at her and all of that. Yeah. But anyway, she thinks no, she won't do that to her child. She won't do the same person. She will protect her poor baby. So Harriet's own thing is that she's in Nicole's business. Her life is pretty simple on the surface. For a while now, she's been truly resentful of her faithful, loving husband, Tim. A particular gripe is that she's sure she's never loved him from the start. How did they meet? Well, in uni, in the midst of a bad tantrum, extremely saddened by her boyfriend who she just broke up with, someone knocks on her dorm room door and she opens it to Tim. That's how they met. And Tim remembers it as love at first sight, with all her makeup running and snorts with heavy sobs. He says he wants her desperately, like in that moment he meets her. And that I kind of like that about him. But now, after 2 kids and 7 years of marriage, it is creeping on her mind that maybe she should not have married her rebound. I think she doubts the entire marriage, like Tim and the kids. They show no satisfaction about being in the family with her. So her resentment makes her feel like she does not deserve to be with them, like imposter syndrome, I think, but as a mother and a wife. With these feelings, she gets out of the blue. Like with her confronting these feelings, out of the blue comes the wedding invite to the infamous ex. His name is Charles, the guy that was responsible for her crying and tantrums, marrying his fiancee, Imogen. Harriet crashes out. She goes on an insane diet, ruminates non-stop on how he should not be getting married. He should have forever been stuck on her, regret losing her so much. He never ever gets married. He's the one that got away, in her mind. And so the issue right now with Harriet is that she goes to the wedding, which is insane. She doesn't have to go. She goes with Tim, and all of the period that she's with Tim, that she's irritated, she's icked out by him. And then when she sees Charles with his wife, after the ceremony, like there's no light of recognition in his eyes, there's no, oh, you, it's just like the same face he made for every guest. There's this thing where the bride and groom will stand and then people will come and be shaking them and they'll be like, thank you for coming, how is the country here, oh, this is good, this is your life, so congratulations, or thank you for coming. So he does it for Harriet and there's no change in his expression. He's just like, oh, you look nice, like not you look nice, like the country air is doing you well, that kind of thing. And she's devastated, she's distraught, she cannot take that. She's like, there was no effect, on him seeing her, despite how gorgeous she looked, yeah. And she starts to drink champagne after champagne, and then she sees one of his groomsmen, Nick. Now Nick, she knew Nick from school, like they were all in the same school together, yeah. So, and Nick is Charles' friend. Her child's father loves her. He's like, oh my darling, so nice to see you. Child was such a fool for letting you go, that kind of thing. So and like it's just a small comfort to get. So she started talking to Nick, and Tim is there, but she avoids him, like she leaves him alone and she goes to start chatting with Nick. Like they went to the same school and all of that, yeah. So she started chatting with Nick, and somehow, I think she throws up on his shoe, and then they meet for lunch, like for her to make up and apologize. And then she says that like something starts between them, a trust starts up between them. So that's her thing right now. She's having this excitement, this excitement that she cannot get from her husband. Like she's literally repulsed by Tim, and all his advances towards her, eka the fuck out, like so bad. She avoids him, she doesn't let him see her change, and anytime he looks at her it feels disgusting. And then, but in this period where she's feeling like this, he wants to get close to her and it's like, I think we should have a baby. And she's like, what the are you, like she balks at the idea and she avoids him completely. But it's there in between them hanging that Tim wants a baby. And it's just so stupid to me. It's like, you want give birth to the baby now. You give birth to the baby. So I'm very much on Harriet's side, so far along, like the way she behaves towards, like I just like it. Like it's okay for a woman to be dissatisfied with her marriage and seek excitement outside. It's very okay. Women in male dominated fields, like that's not even a joke. It's very okay, it's very normal. Like why should she be the one, you know, thrust upon this pedestal of all things right and righteous and good. Like, yes, women can be, very married women, mothers can be faulty and do stupid things because they are human beings. They are not just monoliths of motherhood or whatever. So, where I'm getting to now. The tries with Nick continues to the extent where they even end up going to a hotel. Like before that, they go to have lunch again. They have most of the time they're always having drinks together. I don't know how we going to do that thing, but they're having drinks together. And he's like, they are talking one day and two of them now impulsively get a tattoo. She should get a tattoo on the inner side of her thigh, just below her vagina or something like that. And one day she's dressing up for work and Tim sees it. And when Tim sees it, Tim is literally heartbroken because he knows that something is going on. Obviously, when a woman is having an affair, it's going to be obvious here, especially if she has been pushing off her husband. She's going to be more lively, she's going to be more excitable, more spring. Like he notices it because he's obsessed with her. Like the way they described him looking at his wife, you think maybe they just got married yesterday, or you think maybe they're still dating and he's trying to like get her in his pants. Like or get into her pants. Like he's obsessed. So of course he notices all those changes, all those behavioral changes, all those mood changes, and how she's very like anytime she sees him, there's this expression that comes on her face, and she thinks she's hiding it well. But she thinks she's hiding it so well. She gets angry at Nick. She expresses herself to Nico that she's frustrated by Tim. That Tim doesn't even get the message. You get like she's icked out by him. Can't he see it? All those, but he pretends like he doesn't see it until he sees the butterfly tattoo and his heart is broken completely. So that butterfly tattoo comes on the heels of her telling him that she wants to go somewhere. She wants to go and see her friend in one south part of the country or whatever. I don't know how London works. And they both know this woman and they know how they don't like her. But she says the woman has been pestering her, so she has to go. So Tim says he'll take care of the children, and she can go as she like, easy husband. And she goes. She feels guilty at first, but by the time she's riding on her way there, she's like, fuck him and all of that. And then she gets to the hotel. It's not even a hotel, like a resort, and he's not waiting for her. She expected Nick to fulfill this romantic fantasy, this whole like the one that got away kind of expression, but she's using Nick as a placeholder for the one that got away, get, and also to feel up the satisfaction in her life. And she rushes to the hotel and she goes there and he's not waiting for her. She says, okay, maybe he's waiting in the lobby, and she gets to the lobby and he's not waiting for her either. And she's very, very ashamed as she fills in her details at the desk, and they tell her that she's that her like the person she's expecting is in the room already, and she's trying to like make cover up that we are together or something. Like it's not an affair, because she feels as if the word affair is branded on her forehead. And then she enters into the room and she expects him to be all this like romantic, oh here's a drink, seduce her. You get, she expected him to seduce her into, like they're supposed to take, in her mind they're supposed to take a walk around the gardens, see everywhere, have lunch, have dinner, then at night, seduce her and everything. Like very old fashioned, like as if she's dating him. But he's just here for an affair. So he makes it known. Like immediately she gets in, he's all up in her. He raises her skirt up. He wants to start eating her out and all that. And he's like, she's literally like she has bile coming out from her throat. She's like forces him to stop, like twice. And then eventually the mood spoils and she feels bad about it. And it's like, so he's like, you know what? I'll take a walk. Whatever. Don't do anything. Just stay here. So after he takes a walk and they come back, he tells her that affair cannot be that thing we're expecting. Like usually when I do affairs, it's just hit and like how did they used to say it? Just pump and dump, like that kind of thing. And she thought he thought she was on the same page, but she's like, no, that's not what I want. So like it has all been a big failure. So they end up living on good terms though, because the guy is actually cool. He 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 now drops up this act of a himbo like that. It's just like promiscuous and all of that, and he said he's a human being, and he wishes he could have the emotional range for an actual relationship, but he can't. So sorry he did. Sorry to her that he made her feel so uncomfortable. And she's like, it's okay. They live on good terms. But as she goes back home, something has changed with them because Tim feels like something has happened. Obviously, you get. So Claire's own issue is funny because it's like ma'am, like that is all the writer can do for her. What I told you about Claire, that, and the thing I want to say about Claire is that I kept saying about how they hate each other, and then I was like reflecting on it later, and I read it again, and it's like Elliot says two things. He says she hates herself, and she hates him almost as much as he hates her. No, she hates him almost as much as she hates herself. And I'm like, Elliot, Claire did not say this, or Claire did not express any self-hatred or self-loathing or hatred for even Elliot. But like, Elliot, how did you come off saying she hates herself? How do you know she hates herself? And how do you know she hates you? And why are you not addressing the fact that you also hate her? Because two of you are existing in this problem, and she's not the one that went out to go and have an affair. You are the one that went out to have an affair. So that means you have a level of hatred for her. So much that you decide to seek your own comfort somewhere else outside of the sanctity of you guys' marriage. So like when you get up saying she hates you with some kind of self-righteous judgment of the whole situation, like you don't know her, you don't know this woman at all, you are just a stranger here, and I see why she feels so pressured. Like I see why she feels extra depressed on top of this nonsense she's going through, because you are so passive, you are so like his passivity and his what do you call this behavior where somebody acts as if they cannot process big emotions, like so if he was even emotionally constipated, I'll say there's emotion there. He's too child. Like anytime I read the scene, it's always child. I always feel like grow. Anytime I read Elliot's scenes, like, are you a baby? Are you a baby? Like he wants to be spoon fed, he wants to be made, he wants to be reminded that, oh, like I love you, oh, I'm not blaming you. Guy, you need to make a proactive move if you want things to be better between you and your wife. But obviously you don't want to, because you're not used to that level of maturity. He's emotionally immature. He has no single range of emotion. And I feel like it's so annoyingly like Elliot, but I feel like it's also very common across. There's a way this writer stunted all the men in the book, you get. And I don't want to say it like as if, oh, you are doing this like not all men kind of thing. No, I want to say it as if she did it in a way to emphasize the women's emotional maturity in like on reflection of like in opposition to it, their emotional depth and complexities. And it's like you cannot make a strong man fight against a real human being. You have to put them together if you really want to address how ugly it is that men are socialized to be so self-absorbed and self-centered. You have to show the way they are self-absorbed effectively, not like when somebody is now coming to the level of addressing Elliot to be accountable for something, they just give, like the women just look at him and be like, he didn't mean anything bad. And it's like, it's not about his intentions, it's about him as a person. He made this conscious decision to have an affair, and he's concluding that his wife hates him and his wife hates herself. You've not said how you hate yourself, and you've not said how you hate your wife. You understand? You've not said how you also want to have children. because he mentions it later that Cressida having a child successfully totally made him realize that he has always wanted children too, and that it's not just women that want to have it's not just women or girls that have the fantasy of holding their baby. Like him as a boy too, he has always wanted to hold his own baby. Like, he has always wanted to have his own son, play with his son, teach his son new things, or his child new things. You get, and it's like, are you fucking for real right now? And you're wondering why the woman cannot talk to your wife, cannot talk to you. So like the more I reflect on Elliot and Claire, the more I see that there's something so sinister about Elliot as a whole. And his own sinisterness is not even the kind of direct one that you be like, oh, this man is a piece of shit. His own is like this kind of of like when you prop up a man and you make everybody like around him to be accountable. Like he expects the world to spoon feed him the emotional satisfaction he requires when he feels things in his feelings that he doesn't like, that are hurtful. Instead of him to process it like an adult, he sulks. It's like he's sulking about it. Like, I don't know the word for it, but like it's just intense. The way Elliot is so fucking useless. You get, he's useless. He's a waste of space, you know. And you can't even hate him in an active sense. You hate him in such a way like, I better get out, like as if you're looking at a slug. That's the kind of energy Elliot gives me. You get, and I don't know if it's intentional by the author, because all of the male characters in this book are, like I said, strong men. I don't know if it's intentional by the author, but in this universe, I cannot consider that Elliot is very much at fault for Claire's complete dissociation from the world, complete um disappearance from their marriage. He put it on her like as if because she's the one losing the baby, and because she has the responsibility to have the children, like she's so burdened by it. Guy, you are also a factor to it. You are the one that went to seek emotional satisfaction outside. How would you be present for her sadnesses, for her griefs? You say she hates you. Are you aware that you hate yourself? Or are you aware that you hate her? And this is seeping through. It's something she cannot avoid. I don't know, like it's just this. I want to talk about Nicole here, but use this section to talk about Claire and Elliot. So let's talk about Nicole. Finally, for this section, Nicole is the perfect wife. Nicole is the perfect wife, and her husband is a serial cheat. That's good. I like when in media, stories, movies, series, and all of that, you see, they always make this dynamic of a perfect wife with a serial cheat. Or yes, they always make this dynamic like as if no matter what you do, you cannot make somebody not cheat. You get, cheating is a choice, an active choice. It is old news, in fact. I mean, Gavin being a cheat. That barely a week after meeting Nicole and becoming friends with her, Harriet finds this out at lunch with another friend in a passing conversation. Oh. So that's Nicole's deal right now. The life event of Nicole right now is that she knows her husband cheats, but they confront the whole cheating without words. They pretend they don't know, that both of them don't know what they are doing. Yeah. The life event of Nicole is her reckoning with Gavin's extracurricular, when Nicole can finally put it into words that Gavin is cheating on her and confront him with it. But it leads up to that in the sense like Nicole usually consoled herself by saying she was the wife. Oh, I'm the mother of his kids. I'm the only one that has his kids. That I will always occupy. Like as if it is special, you know. Like he can go and so it's like have his sex anywhere and anybody like, but at least he's coming home to me. That's basically Nicole's moment, like stuff. And then there are some events where he just buys her diamonds, he buys her flowers, he takes her to lunch, he gives her extra attention, and he says he will tell her, you know, I'm making up to you for being an ass. And they won't say, both of them won't clearly say what it is, what he's trying to make up for. Mostly because I think Nicole wants to stay in the Lolo land just a bit longer. She goes to lunch the next day, like one of these moments. She goes to lunch the next day with Harriet. Like, okay, what happens? Like this is a special one. This special one is that Gavin decides that, you know what, let's revive our marriage. Let's go to, you are the one that dared the marriage. Oh. Let's just revive our mind. Let's go to Venice. And he says they will ship their children off to the au pair to care for, and they'll plan how they are cared for the period that they are gone. And Nicole is ecstatic. She's like, she remembers Venice. Of course, she remembers her honeymoon period. Everything was perfect, literally perfect in Venice. There, like food, the gondolas, the music at night, the sex and everything and all of that, and the promises and all of that and all of that. So she's ecstatic and she's like, yes, 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 I'll go with you. And then at lunch the next day, she goes to tell Harriet that she has a plan and that in this outing, in this trip here, she's going to conceive a baby for Gavin and to bring them closer. And Harriet is like, bro, I don't think you are going about this the right way. Yeah. And something about Nicole is that she will vent to Harriet that like her husband did this and she'll be crying and all of that, and Harriet will go off on Gavin. Say if I catch that man, let me not, and she avoids him actively because anytime she sees him she's always staring daggers at him, like small thing for her to cuss him out, like and they hang out they are literally family friends, yeah. So like, and the timeline of their children, of them having them, like is literally the same. Josh came out the same. They even met in the hospital. So when she gave, they met in the antenatal class, yeah, prenatal class where they were doing yoga for birthing, and then they became besties. And then their husbands came for the classes, and then their husbands knew each other. So they were friends up to the point that they gave birth. They had the same time of birth. So Joshua and the twins, they're the same age, and then Chloe and Martha, they had them to around the same period. So the family is really tight like that, a bet and all of that. But it's sad because Tim and Harry, they hate Gavin to hell and back, and they love Nicole, like they care about that. Like Tim even has a relationship with Nicole that he's always like, she can call him and he will be there for her too. You get, so like that's how close their friendship is. Like they all collectively hate Gavin on Nicole's behalf. So, anyways, she's telling Harriet this about what Gavin proposed in the visit tonight to Venice, and so that Harriet will relax. Harriet will not hate him so much, and she's like, "Oh, I don't think this is a good idea, though. Like you trying to have a child, you know what it means to have a child. You know how stressful it is to have a child." So that main point of this section is what I want to bring. My main point is that I just want to narrate the book. I just want to bring out the thing that really pissed me off in the book, which is the pro-life agenda. The thing about the characters in this book is that they all entangle with the concept of unexpected pregnancy and abortion. Polly's unexpected pregnancy was Cressida when she was in her 20s, 21. Cressida has one unexpected pregnancy now. Nicole plans to have a baby on her holiday. Tim has informed Harriet for his desire for a baby. Harriet does not want one. She's repulsed by him. Susan was an unexpected pregnancy, and we'll get into that much later. But Susan was an unexpected pregnancy of Alice's sister, Alice's elder sister. And then Alice's elder sister Deirdre put Susan in the care of Alice, in the sense that if anything happens to her, let her go to Alice. So she wrote a letter, and then something happened to Deirdre. She died in an accident, and then the baby was sent to Alice. So Alice, in that period, it was much like 70s or 60s, and they forged papers, birth records for Alice, for Susan to be their daughter. You get, by at that time they had just had Margaret, yeah. So that is Susan's own issue. That's Susan's own case. Then down the line, Polly decides to raise Cressida's kid as her own till she's ready. She literally will give up her job at the office, at the law office, to take care of Polly's kid, Cressida's kid as her own. Jack, the husband, the man that wants to marry her and the man she has agreed to marry, doesn't want a child ever. In fact, he broke up with his ex-wife because of this baby thing. She wanted a child, and he did not want a child. He does not ever want to have babies. So that is the issue between Polly and Jack. And now because of that, Jack and Polly has broken up. Claire cannot have a baby, and Elias is the father of Cressida's child. This book is one giant anti-abortion propaganda, and it is so venomous in its messaging, because that's how most pro-lifers are. That the characters that oppose it, that oppose having unexpected pregnancy, that oppose having a child from an unexpected pregnancy, like an abortion, and people that actually go ahead to have abortion or support abortion, and those ones too that cannot have babies, are punished so harshly. So I'm going to review it in a way that exposes it. Then I will in turn vehemently oppose it and curse it out. And that will be the last section of this review. Okay. um how to say it, the people that like when Polly wanted Cressida to remove the child, Cressida went and got an ultrasound and came back to her mom and told her no, she's fucking having the baby. And Polly, wanting to shield her child from society and the pressure of taking a child to uni, says she will keep the child for her, which is an extra on advantage that people that usually um um in the situation of having unexpected pregnancy do not have such support. Most of them don't have such support. She punishes the girl with debilitating guilt and remorse, and then in the next moment, Harriet's child, in the moment where Nicole is depressed and she cannot take care of her children, Harriet offers to hold on to her children for her for the weekend or for a while. You get, and then she's caring for how many children now? That's two plus three, five kids. So on a day when she's very tired, you get, the boys are outside, three of them are outside, while Martha and Chloe are indoors with her. And she's baking something for them. Next thing they hear is a scream, and they go out and they see that Josh, her own son, has jumped off of the roof and he's laying comatose on the floor. So it's like that is that is that is actually Harriet's punishment for supporting her friend's abortion. And then when he comes back to life, there's talk of how, like, there's this subtle jibes of how you see a child dying is not a joke, or the child dying is not a joke, like don't take for granted your child being alive, or you shouldn't kill children, basically, like the subtle jibe of you shouldn't kill children. I don't know how I'm going to make it clear, but those are the things that happen. And Jack is so distraught and is like, you know what? I love you so much, Polly. I cannot live without you. Don't worry. He they now stage this moment where he's left alone with the baby. The baby comes and he's left alone with the baby, and the baby is crying, so he holds the baby, and the baby wraps their hand around his entire pinky, and his heart melts completely. And it's like that is not why people decide to not have children in the first place. People that decide not to have children, it's not like they don't interact with actual infants or babies. Is that it's a choice. Okay, it's not that children won't melt your heart. You can be around children and care, but you're not. It's so stupid and narrow-minded to think that someone deciding not to have a child is because they don't know how wonderful kids are. They don't know how much of a gift kids are. They don't know how soft and angelic babies are. Like, that is not the entire point. It is just a choice, simply a choice. And it's usually not informed by externalities. It's a decision that comes from the deep, 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 deep depth of your heart, from the inside. So somebody that decides not to have a child can go out and play with people's babies. You're not going to see a baby on the road and kick the baby into the gutter and say because you don't want to have children, you don't like the idea of having children. So that means every child you see is a monster. You perceive children as monsters, or you kick a child. Even the people that are more likely to kick children into gutters are those ones that have babies actively. Most abuse that happens to children, and especially infants, are done by their parents, people that chose to have them. So it's not like a gotcha moment. It's just like, bro, you need to apply nuance. Like, you need to open your mind to the idea of people making choices about their bodies, people making choices about their lives. But like, basically, um that's just this section. That's what the section is about. I hope this review is going to make sense when I put it together. So the next section is going to be the final section when I finally, I don't know, come to a conclusion about, wrap it up in a very messy bow, because I don't think I can do it neatly. So the inspiration for this section of the video, which is as I have written out my final thought and my conclusion, it came to me when I was in the shower, as all very good thoughts come to people. This is casual Sundays, as you can see from my parents. I'm very casual, so I decided that okay, my thoughts and my conclusion will also be expressed in a very casual, non-scripted form. And so I'm preparing this whole section of the house to um, do my review, and I was like, hey, why don't I be dynamic, and just stand. And also, there's a freaking church outside my house. Today is Sunday as I'm recording this, and the pastor is busy screaming in prayer, and people are also responding, amen. He's saying things, he's saying that doctor diagnosis, I cancel it. That report you got from the hospital, I cancel it. Let there be fruit in your marriages. So basically children, and he's blessing the people of the church, marriages in the church or couples in the church with children. And the voice I can hear the most are feminine. Yeah, the voice echo chorusing amen, amen, amen. They are feminine. I know that church backbone, that church's foundation and pillars are all women. Yeah, but there's a male pastor. There's always a male pastor. It still goes on to now start saying doors of marriages are open. So as in women are going to be married this year. And I think he said something about passports. So it's praying for them also to get their visas and all of that. So it's like I feel like this is an epidemic. You get, I don't know if it's epidemic, is it not localized to a certain area? Pandemic, let's call it a pandemic the world over, by male headed bodies pressuring women to give birth any way or form, whether socially, whether spiritually through religious indoctrination and all of that, or whether economically. You get, I don't know how economic, I mean, the economic benefits of getting married and is higher in other countries. It's also high in this country actually. Yeah, a two household income is wonderful. But basically what I'm saying is that there is so much noise, you know, centered on women this period for them to have children. Like, as far as I've grown up or whatever, I've always heard, how God is so wonderful in giving women children after years of praying and praying. So I don't think religious thing is new. Religion has always pushed for women to have children at the detriment of their own bodies. Yeah. So it's like they are praying for these people to have children, which are extra economic loads in an economy that is not even functioning at all. And then you're not praying for them to be able to run away, to become migrants in a better system, in a working system abroad. You get, so why not just pray for them to just do well here? You get, I don't know if that makes sense. So now, as I was in the bathroom, I was thinking about, and I was listening to my editing here, because I'm editing the clips as I go. I'm listening to it and I'm the last thing I said was that this woman, in every form or shape, everybody's interacting with conception, pregnancy, abortion, and the choice to not abort. You get, but something about this woman that seriously contradicts her argument, and I feel like the thesis of her book is that there is a mandate, almost divine mandate, on women to have children. The men are not as important in this situation. I think she doesn't care for men. I think she has a level of distaste for men. Anytime I think about the men in this book, I be like, this woman, she actually sees men as nothing more than figureheads, which valid. But like, why would you now think that your distaste for men is not, like, you're not letting it process in your system, in your reasoning, to show that no matter how much you hate men, the systems that they perpetuate and that we are socialized to believe is wonderful, that are mandates, whether the man is a puppet or not, these systems are actively harming the demographic of people called women, who identify as women. So it's like, you can't just portray them as puppets. You can't just portray them as flat characters and make them not to experience the consequences of their actions, of their flippant lifestyle and selfish, self-absorbed personalities. You can't make them just be that and not reckon with what that causes when a woman speaks up for herself, when a woman is sovereign in her body and all of that. So I like, what I'm going to is that the plot twist I was hankering on early in the video that I later exposed in this previous section is that Susan is the product of an unexpected pregnancy. Susan's mom is Alice's sister. You get, and her name was Deirdre. Like I said, Deirdre had an unexpected pregnancy in a time where Britain was not allowing it. It was not allowing women to abort babies. So Deirdre, at the time when she was like a teenager, yeah, she was not allowed to abort. Women were not allowed to have abortions, no matter the situation of her, of the conception, no matter how the circumstances of the conception, yeah, she was not allowed to abort. And they're not just are not allowed to abort. There was a collective shunning from society if you got pregnant outside of marriage, if you got pregnant as a teenager that was not married, you get, there was a collective shunning. People wouldn't give you jobs. People would, your family would be absolutely disgraced. You get, and that was how it was in this country too. I don't know how very free the legalities of abortion are in my country right now, but it's very reminiscent of what I heard growing up, of how the movies and how the media in this country portrayed teen pregnancies, portrayed women that got pregnant unexpectedly. Yeah, however bad the circumstances were. So back to Deirdre. So Deirdre was shunned, and instead of causing this big disgrace to her family, she quietly told her sister, and she decided to keep it a secret for her. So she went with no money because she didn't have a job. She was way too young, and she was not yet independent from her parents. But she left her home on the pretense of a job in another region of the UK. I think it was all of, you know, the way UK is. I can't remember it right now, but in another region of the United Kingdom, yeah, she went there on her own and tried to hide her pregnancy as much as possible, as physically possible as it was, to get jobs. And those jobs were minimum wage, of course. And the period when women were not allowed to abort and were collectively shunned for teen pregnancies, I don't imagine that a teenage girl looking for a job would even get up to the minimum wage level. So picture all of that, the suffering and the harsh treatment of society in a very precarious time in her life, having a baby, you get, carrying a pregnancy. This woman gave birth to Susan. So after having Susan, she named her sister as her next of kin. Alice accepted it wholeheartedly. Now, look at the ripple effect of what later happened. Deirdre was on her way to work, and then she got hit by a car, and her infant was left up to the government. But because of what she had already put in place in her will, she was handed over to Alice. Now, Alice, because of the paperwork and the non-technological systems at the time, she was able to forge documents in a way that proved Susan as her kid. So now, because of Alice's deep, deep guilt, so bad for her sister. Is that guilt or just like pity? Just those heavy feelings. So she tried to make it up with Susan's upbringing, in the sense that because Susan was an infant, she just raised Susan up as a child. She and her husband, they agreed that Alice and her husband agreed that yes, this is their child now. You get, and they integrated her into their family. And then Margaret started to see her as a sister, because Margaret was also very, very little to register any sort of change, you get. And so they grew up. But the issue now, the ripple effect, is that because of how much she wanted to make up to Susan, and the lying by omission that her actual mother was dead, and also the suffering that her mother went through before having her, and the suffering she had after having her, she experienced after having her, Alice overcompensated to the extent where Margaret was literally pushed out by both of them's dynamics. Now, when you start the story, now I complain about how Susan was acting like this, was not acting, but that was her own personality. Like, she was this matter still was, always there for everybody, always, everything. And she was lucky to have a husband like Roger. So my point is, Margaret was eventually pushed out of their dynamic, and it is not said in so many words, but we can see with the way Margaret, the way Susan narrates Margaret's behavior around her all through their childhood, how Margaret couldn't even wait to be engaged to some guy she met over the summer, 1 year when she was like 20 or something, and then she was like, I'm engaged, I'm going to Australia to marry my husband, like Greg. And the parents saw Greg, Alice saw Greg, and there was nothing she could do. Nothing she could do. But like, the overcompensation was so bad that Margaret lived her whole life believing that her mother hated her or that she was the adopted one. You get, and she did not even reach out to Susan or her mom or her dad when Greg cheated on her barely how many years into the marriage. Greg told Greg that she's not ready to have a child now, that she'll have a child much later. You get, so she tried to have a child in the later period, and then the pregnancy miscarried. You get, and after the pregnancy miscarried, Greg now went out and cheated on her with his secretary that was how many years younger than she was, and nonsense discourse that men try to put up. So again, Greg is still very one dimensional. Anyway, Margaret comes back to the UK for, like I said it earlier, Alice died. You get, Alice passes away in a nursing home, and as much as Margaret, was experiencing feelings of regret when she saw her mom in a very bad state, not even remembering who Margaret was, as she hated Margaret herself too, hated the nursing home as much as Susan, but they could not agree on anything because who was going to care for her? If Margaret was rushing back to Australia, who would care for their mother? So my point is that this decision that Alice took, which is coming from their decision not to have an abortion, which is not that she even made a decision, it was mostly that it was not possible for them. Like, you look at how the horrors of not having the choice to abort a child that is unexpected and they are not prepared for, they are ill-equipped to care for. How not having that choice, so look at the ripple effect it caused on the families, on generations after. Because at Alice's burial, they find, among her things, they find a letter, and this letter exposes everything, reveals everything to both to Susan and to Margaret, and their whole world views are shattered. And Susan is overwhelmed. She's crying on Roger's shoulders. Margaret cannot even see anything. All of a sudden, all the snark, all the resentment, all the anger, all the hatred she had for her mother and for especially Susan melted away in an instant, because it just became this moment of, wow, okay, I see that my ill feelings were unfounded. My ill feelings were um just a whole lie. You get, it was just a lie. Yeah. And Susan too was feeling so heavy about it. She was like, why didn't mom tell me? Like, no matter what she had told me, I would have always been her daughter. And if you see the way Susan is being narrated as, now it begins to make sense why it feels as if all of the narration description of Susan's character has always been like this kind of endless pool of kindness and generosity, and patience and love and all of that. And it's like and especially the way she had so much space in her heart for her mom, yeah, Alice. It just began to look as if Susan was trying to make up for something as well. Alice was obviously, with the knowledge that she has, was obviously overcompensating for her daughter's kid, yeah, by being him a mother to her, a true mother to her. But the child that she was overcompensating onto, it was also not enough. She still felt like she needed to be everything, and to this woman, she sees that she has known as her mother. You get, and I feel like Margaret's own resentment and anger is the most honest, is the most wholesome, is the most reflective of an actual relationship between mother and daughter than between Susan's and Alice. Yeah. Back to my issue of abortion. So, like, look at what Deirdre went through. Look at the life that Margaret lived, suffering in loneliness and pain and resentment and anger and regret now. Suffering all of that just because the government refused to allow women have autonomy over their bodies. Now it comes to present day Cressida. Now present day Cressida has the options to have an abortion, and she decides not to. For whatever reason, she says the child is a gift to her. Like, what I kept emphasizing as how Cressida at 19 does not have the wherewithal. She does not have the mental fortitude to process, or the mental capabilities to process what is happening to her body. That she's a child, in that sense, but she does not have the consequences of having a child at 19. There's no way she can foresee what it will bring. You get, and this is someone that is not yet mature enough to decide fully what they want from their lives. You get, I know 19, 20, 21, they'll say, but like it's still a period of figuring yourself out. And how are you going to figure yourself out when you have the ever present and forever burden of a child, an unexpected one at that? You didn't want to have this child, you were careful, but mistakes happened. Yeah. And so now the issue I'm kind of trying to bring a parallel to is that Cressida has the option to abort, and she says she's not going to abort. She's going to live with the decision. Thor, live with the decision. Now, nearly towards the end of the book, as Polly is deciding to get married, and has agreed to get married to this her boyfriend, this her lovely boyfriend, this her partner, this her emotional support, that she has not had for almost all of her life, even through all of her children's growth and growing up to teenage and adulthood. Now she has this relationship that is a dream come true, basically. Now she's choosing to jeopardize this relationship because she wants to do the noble thing of taking Cressida's child as her own. She says the logic behind this is that she wants Cressida to live out her life, to not feel deprived of having this young adulthood, of having this choice to live life and determine and name her own choices, because a child is not going to allow that. Cressida is just getting into college. How is she going to be carrying her babies to meetings, to fun dates, to parties, to classes, to exams, to keep up with the academic load of it all, and extracurricular? Like, how is she going to do that with a child? Where is the funds going to come from? What kind of job are you going to have with school? So Polly decides, yes, I will do this for my child. And it's the way she keeps on forcing it. I mean, the author keeps on forcing it as if it's this wonderful, noble thing. Oh my God. Oh, it's so noble of this mother. Oh, look at how a mother sacrifices for her daughter. Oh, a mother sacrifices for her daughter. Oh. And it's so fucking delusional, because it is entirely contradicting Deirdre's situation. It's contradicting Deirdre's situation, contradicting Deirdre's situation, because out of Deirdre's situation, what we are made to be is like, oh, look at the gift of Susan. Look at how Susan is so special. Look at how Susan was there for her mother. If she had not accepted Susan, if Deirdre had aborted Susan, what kind of daughter would Alice would have had? What kind of daughter would Alice had in Margaret? And it's like, the reason why her relationship with Margaret is so poor and bad, or was so poor and bad, was because of Susan. So Susan is like making up for that space she has taken away from Margaret. Me, that's how I choose to see it though. That's how I choose to see it. And now this is not a case of adoption. Okay, adoption is beautiful. I love the idea of adopting. There are so many kids homeless. They deserve a home. Every child deserves a home, kindness, shelter, love, warming environment. They love and a warm environment. So yeah, every child deserves that. I love, but the adoption is not the focus here. This author is trying to bring about the idea that the divine mandate of women having children must be followed through with, and that is just psychosis. That's delusional. It has no basis in reality. You get, and that is why everything becomes distorted and skewed, no matter what. Because now Polly at her age, she has to start raising an infant. She has to leave her job. She says she's going to take a long-term leave from the company, and it's like, who guarantees you? The system of women in workplaces. You, this author, the system of it. How many women are guaranteed a place in their offices with the same level of benefits, after taking a long-term leave from their jobs because of a childbirth, because of pregnancy? How many? Then the wage gap thing too. So like, it's not as if women have this a bountiful support system from the government for having children anywhere in the world, but somehow you want to pretend that the emotional benefit, the emotional bond of motherhood and mother and daughter can make up for this big deal, this big ass decision. And so I don't know if I'm making sense, but anyways, Cressida gives a little bit of but she eventually allows her mother to. She says her mother can have the child. Because she says her mother can raise her. She will definitely come back for her son. She will do this, she will do that. We cannot even begin to process the way that is going to work in that boy's head. I don't even know his name because as usual, these children are just props to this author. So I didn't register his name. So anyways, we've not processed the level of dissonance that can create in that child later on. Maybe it will work out, maybe it won't work out. Who's to say? That's a human being. Another thing is that Polly had an unexpected pregnancy and did not experience a lot of things. Didn't make a lot of selfish decisions for her own life as she deserves, because she was busy taking care of a baby with an unsupportive husband. And now that she now has a supportive, loving, emotional presence as a partner in her life, she's jeopardizing all of it because Jack refuses to have a baby. He divorced his ex-wife, like I said, because she wanted a baby, and he does not want children, and she's probably ready to rough the rest of her life, just rugged the rest of her life, because she feels like, and I think there's some kind of notion of nobility that is being discussed between the women, as Susan and Polly, their besties, yeah, and they're discussing how noble it is that she's doing this for her daughter. Oh, her daughter is she's such a one. Mother. They kept on saying things. I don't want to even bring the book already because pissed me off so bad, but they kept on like reinforcing this idea that, oh, mothers are jewels, oh, mothers are like angels, self-sacrifice. That is what they said, that is what a mother is, self-sacrifice. And I'm like, yes, that's the concept of a mother. That's why people can decide not to have children, because they don't want to sacrifice themselves. Simple as that. Not because they hate children, they just want to sacrifice their life for somebody else's. You understand? And there's nothing noble about sacrificing your life when there's no reward, no acknowledgement, no praise from the system that created such a dynamic. Why should a mother be self-sacrificing when the child came from two parties? The father. There's no discussion of the father. The father is not ever sacrificing himself for one lick of aspect of this child's life in all of the book, in all of the story, all of the women's lives. No man is sacrificing anything. Let's just focus on the women. I think that does nothing for your idea of feminism. That is not even feminism at all. That's not fair. The men are not meant to bear the consequences. Now, when Cressida was talking about how she loves Elliot, and Elliot is a gift, and maybe she has the children, she had the baby, her eye just clear. She was just like, you know what? I think I want to live my life. And that is a teenager for you. Elliot was all hanging around, hovering around, saying, and what about us? She says, Cressida said, you always have an access to your son's life. It's your son, you get, and because of that, I'm also involved in your life. It's like, I'm not talking about him, I'm talking about us. Like, oh, you're talking about us. You're talking about us. I think baby is not more important. But you made your wife feel so bad. You hurt your wife so badly, she left the entire country. Now you want to foist your old age on top this young girl that is finding herself in the world. You want to foist your whole old man senses on top her. Say, oh, what about us? You get? And that's one thing I liked about Cressida. She was spoiled. Like, it feels the way she goes along with what her mom says, you get, and she forces her own decision upon her mom as well. Her mom wanted her to abort the baby and she said no, and her mom went along with it. So although that is not forced, so that is just a choice. You get, I'm all for that. Make your choice. It doesn't, nobody can make you to do what you don't want to do with your body. Yeah. So it's like, I like Cressida in that aspect because she's extremely spoiled. You get, and it shows up when she's talking to Elliot, because Elliot is supposed to be this infantilized, a self-absorbed, selfish entity, and he's like, what about us? The only time we see any introspection in Elliot's head is when he after meeting his son and they part ways in the park, like normal visitation times. Yeah. There's no law attached, no legality, just decided. So, but anyways, he goes to one corner of the park and he starts crying. Like, look at you, Agbaya, at your old age. You think you can come and force yourself upon a child, upon a young lady trying to figure herself in the world. After you have lived your life, you have married, you have spoiled your wife's reputation and let's not give him too much power, but you spoiled your wife's entire memory of her first love and the final love. You've ruined her life. Sote she comot country because of your exploits. Now you want to come and start doing husband to a little girl. You want to come and start doing doting husband, doting father on top girl. On top of a 21-year-old that is just finding her feet. Omo, you are a joker. Let me tell you. And that is one thing I like about girls that allow themselves to, I'm calling them girls because to me they are that they're just figuring out themselves. Okay? So that was like about 21-year-old girls, 19-year-old girls that, even though it's not right, you get, allow themselves to be in relationships with all these old Agbaya men, all these 40-something-year-old. They say, no, me, I don't do women of 30. I don't do women of my age. I do young girls because they are nice, they are this, they are impressionable, I can twist them as I like. They will not enter a relationship with these girls, and these girls will show them pepper. They will chop them and clean mouth. Now, Cressida has her baby. She has the rest of her life to look forward to. You, your own, instead of you to find the thing that is making you feel empty in your life that you think a baby would feel. Now the baby don't come and you are still feeling empty. You still want to foist your emptiness onto a young person's life. You better, if you don't start crying, you better start crying. You better cry. You get, like, that is the thing. It's not like all of this is not to say that the book is good or the book is awesome. It's just like, you better ready for fire, that horror, that depression you think a child would have saved you from, that horror, that depression you thought having an affair had freed you from. You'll be content with it and you will deal with it by yourself because your wife is not more there. Okay, do with it by yourself. That Cressida should not get your time at all. But that is the wonders, and Cressida is extremely lucky, you get, because she has a mom like Polly. Most girls that end up in unexpected pregnancy, they don't have supportive parents. They're usually from broken homes, they're usually below the poverty line, they're usually a demographic of race that has been downtrodden, and I mean black women, you get, and they're from countries that have very, very poor policies planned for women's health and women's place in the society. Yeah, so like I just want to show how the idea of Deirdre, the concept of Deirdre's beginning and end to Susan, contradicts the whole nobility that she's trying to push with Cressida, because Deirdre did not have supportive parents. Deirdre suffered poverty and ill health, because I don't know, anyway, she died in a motor accident here. So, but anyways, and Susan was only lucky because she had an aunt that decided to adopt her. Most children end up in foster care, and who knows where their life and how their life turns out. You understand? So we cannot just carry this stupid poorly thought of religious, I think it's coming from a religious angle, this religious expectation of women. It doesn't make sense. Then the one character that now seems to be all rounded, she's an adult, she's in a marriage, she's well to do, modern woman, you know, with all her facilities. She's old enough to know she has had 3 children. She's in a bad marriage with a husband that, you know, that all through this we never get one moment of introspection from Gavin, not 1 second. And when Nicole carries out the abortion and decides to pick her life back and decides to divorce Gavin officially and tell him that, you know what, I don't want to be married to you anymore, when she decides all of that, there is no highlight on the job that Nicole takes up. There's no reference to it. It just says she has a job now. There's no what do you call this, exposition into how the job is giving her this financial independence. Although Gavin is rich and he's going to pay child support, but I don't think that's going to be enough to care for everything. But Nicole is finding her feet with a new job after the abortion and after the divorce. You get. But the way she writes the story, the way the author writes the story is like, oh, Nicole is so burdened by the abortion. Oh, Nicole, poor Nicole. Oh, Nicole, you are such an evil woman. Why have you failed your heavenly mandate? Why have you rejected the thing, the blessing that is the child? You know, a child that is coming to fix your marriage but cannot even begin to try to even know you as a person. Why did you reject such a wonderful gift that would have only been extra pain and torture to you, your body, your life in general? Nicole is actually a very good, she should have been this good representation of what the choice to abort, you know, for women, the blessing that it is. Because imagine being saddled in divorce proceedings with your husband who everybody in town knows is a fucking cheat. Yeah? Imagine that. You know, when I'm talking about how Nicole's body is fit and everything, that thing is not just coming from Nicole. Oh. Do you know that in one part early on, Gavin literally told this woman, because she was like, Gavin, are you sure I will not just, I don't want to go to the gym today? Gavin was like, what? Don't do that. Okay? Do not do that. Because when you go to boarding school to pick our sons now, you will see that our sons will thank you for being a hot mother, for being their hot mother that is admired by all the boys in boarding school. And I'm like, so. So you can see that this idea of a woman in a marriage saying, oh, I'm looking fit for myself. I'm looking sexy for myself. I'm doing all this feminine thing and avoiding all these feminine expectations of the patriarchy because I just like it. I just like to make my hair look nice. I just like to do this. I just like to do that to my body. Something that costs time, effort. You just like to do it on top of taking care of 3 children. So the voice of patriarchy gets into the heads of women so young and they begin to believe that that voice is their own. That's why I encourage a lot of discrimination now to things that you want to uphold as a woman. You have to discriminate it so that you can see where that voice is coming from. You can recognize it as either it's yours or it's not. All this, oh, I'm dating a guy now, so I'm so soft. He has brought out my feminine side. I'm no more like before. All this, oh, a woman is naked on a magazine cover and it is all praised by her fans as women being sexually autonomous. Meanwhile, till today, nowhere in the world is providing actual justice for rape victims. Nowhere in the world is providing a lot of places in the world are cracking down on women's health. Yeah, no real training, no real research and development is going into women's health. Women go to the hospital every day and ask for support from their doctors, and the doctors are like, you know what, I think it's headache. Meanwhile, somebody is suffering from endometriosis. You know what, I think they are being like when a woman goes to the hospital and is like, you know what, I want to have my tubes tied, I want to have a hysterectomy. You tell the woman that, what about your potential husband? What if he wants children? I'm sorry, I can't do this process for you. Or the ones that have husband, does your husband know that you are doing this? Please, I have to see a signed document from your husband. So like, what is a naked woman on a billboard cover or on a magazine cover doing for all of that? How is it standing up for women? That woman on the magazine cover that is naked, she's at an economic safety way above the women that are facing the actual consequences of the rampant sexualization of female bodies. So I don't know. In this cause of feminism, we cannot just be our worst enemies. This book was written by a woman that has daughters. I think she has, I don't know, she must have a daughter because she's obsessed with mother-daughter bond. Maybe she had a weird relationship with her mom, or she's trying to foster some kind of relationship with her daughter or whatever. But it's like we cannot be our own worst enemy. That is how the patriarchy works. And when you say women should not be their worst enemies, I don't mean this nonsense surface thing that they call a girls. Like that thing is just a system of policing other women so that it can be hierarchical. Say, no, me, I know what a girl code is. I know what a girl's girl is. You did not behave like a girl's girl. So I have the right to gossip and badmouth you. But I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just saying that this book is just, it just really pissed me off so bad. Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that the conclusion of all of it is that no woman has a divine mandate on their body. No heavens, no God, no divinity can ask a woman to do with her body what she has never even thought of doing, what she doesn't want to do. Okay? And no amount of flowery language and choice feminism or pretend feminism is going to delude anybody into that. And then something I read on statistics is like the rate of like teen abortions in the UK is way higher than it has ever been. Like in that 2000s period, I think it was way higher than it has been in the past 60, how many years, 20 years. I don't want to say, but like in 1998 to 2000 or something, the rate of abortion was so high. You get, and it's like good girls, those girls at the time were like really smart. And nowadays it's not even abortion case, it's about women choosing to be childless, choosing to stay single and unmarried and just live their life on their own terms. Like, good going women, we're gonna do this, we're gonna dismantle the patriarchy. We're gonna do this. I even saw one thing on TikTok, like I finished the video, that's the end of my video. I saw one thing on TikTok here where everyone was talking about how evolution is happening in human beings right now, where women are like the male loneliness epidemic is an evolutionary sign, in that women are refusing to mate and have children and keep up the genetic trait of violent men that are disrespectful, men that are aggressive, men that have low intelligence. You get, men are refusing to have it so that their children will not, like, the next generation of people that are going to be born into this world, they won't have this regressive trait of men. I'm not saying it very eloquently, but the point is like, in the past, no matter how unintelligent, unwashed, smelly, disgusting, violent, regressive a man and patriarchal a man was, he was handed a wife by the patriarchy. Okay, he was always handed a wife, didn't matter, and that wife was subject to his demands for children. But now that modern women can decide, no, I think I'll pass on this. I think I'll pass on this. Like, like modern women can do that, are deciding that actively, taking charge of their body and all of that. Yay! That women are doing that. Those type of men are going to phase out. Literally, they're going to go extinct because they're going to go the rest of their life with no children to carry on their disgusting traits and no children to carry on their mental unintelligence. And I think that gave me so much hope this morning. And I was like, I think that's what even propelled me to to make this video. So anyways, that was the end of this video. It's very long. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to edit it, but it's going to happen. I'm going to have the video out whenever you see it. So thank you for being here. Subscribe, leave comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.